plane crashed into the ocean. There's not much you can recall. So come stay with us in rapture. The great need not fear the small. I have built the world around you with the sweat of my own brow. Up there leeches ask for their share. Under here we let them drown. Under the sea, under the sea. The city's so pretty, you should stay with me, would you kindly? Up on the shore, the parasites. I'd rather be a man than splice. Try our new plasmids, body enhancements under the sea.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rollin' 20. We are the show that found out this week that a bunch of Ashley Madison users sent emails from White House email addresses. Well, now I know where my tax dollars are going. I am Jeremy.
Steve.
And Jesse.
Remember, you can find this show and several others in the MSP library at missionstarpodcast.com. You can like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes and on Stitcher. Follow us on Twitter at the Rolling 20s. You can send us any fan mail, suggestions for the show, or hate mail at mspfreight@yahoo.com. The music you heard at the beginning of the show is by Machine Supremacy. You can find most of their discography for free download at machinesupremacy.com or their latest couple of albums on amazon.com. The clip you heard is the BioShock Under the Sea parody by College Humor. You can find more of their videos under their YouTube channel, College Humor. How's it going thus far?
Not too bad.
People that have noticed, I'm unable to find V at present. She had a problem with her phone, aka lost it. So the number's apparently changed, and I can't get in touch with her at the moment. So we'll see if she pops up. It's just been interesting. There's been a lot of interesting news, and I pulled off a major faux pas yesterday.
Oh, really?
I drove myself from my home in the Los Angeles Valley all the way out to the Ventura Fairgrounds, which is about 45, maybe 50 minutes away by freeway on a good day. And I got out to the Ventura Fairgrounds for the Central Coast Comic-Con, or C4 as they call it. And I took a look around at about 8:30, I think, in the morning. I didn't see anybody, so I got confused, started checking my phone, and then I realized C4 is next weekend.
Oh, damn.
So I'm just sitting there thinking, so do I spend my day out here and just kind of do nothing for a bit, or do some errands? Yeah, I'll drive back and do some errands. You know, it's 8:30 on a Saturday. Traffic's not shit yet. So I raced back home before I got trapped out in Ventura.
Nice.
Yeah, I spent my weekend listening to the podcast you and V did while we were having technical difficulties here.
Oh, what'd you think?
The last one, I was a bit upset. One, I wasn't able to participate because, one, you were talking about sea otters and I actually love the damn little creatures. And two, a little bit offended that you don't think I would like to show humans.
Doesn't seem your speed. You're the one that keeps saying you're the one that shuts off your brain during shows like this, and humans has like no action. There's no heavy.
I shut my brain off for
no heavy
any
visual
show.
candy.
No, I shut my brain off for any show. It has to do something very spectacular for me to actually, turn it back on. And it sounds like that show would.
I don't know. It's a very quiet show. I was interested more in the sociological questions it kept raising up. But that's the way I roll. Let me see. I was thinking that something else weird occurred in the last few days, but I don't think it did. I think I just fooled myself somehow. But the subject this week is actually Convergence 5 through 8. We'll go through the second half of the Convergence event, the DC Comics mega event of the summer. Before we do that, there's our Kickstarter corner. But really, before we do all of that, there is something rather notable that happened this week that has to be addressed, and that is the unfortunate passing of Yvonne Craig.
Yeah.
She was 78. Yeah. I don't know if the generation of people that listens to podcasts in general would remember her, but she was the one who first brought Batgirl to life in the 1966 Batman show. Yep. Batgirl is one of those characters like X-23 and Harley Quinn. She started out in media other than comic books, but the popularity of the character carried it over. And Yvonne Craig was this brunette actress who they chose to put a purple suit and a red wig on, and she embodied a lot of what the early thoughts of the character were. A lot of people don't realize, though, she was also an actress on Star Trek.
Multiple series, actually.
Yeah. She was the infamous Orion girl that tried to seduce and then kill Captain Kirk.
Yep.
She passed away due to cancer earlier this week, 78 years old. She was also on My Three Sons, The Many Loves of Dobie Gills, and a few other items. But, God, I remember being a kid and watching the reruns on the 66 series. You always got excited at the end of an episode of Batman, and you saw Batgirl's motorcycle come by, because then you knew she's coming.
Yep.
And,
I was never excited for that show.
It's very enjoyable. You know, as a kid, you take it seriously because you don't know better. As an adult, you don't take it seriously, and it's just hilarious watching this guy with a pooch run around as Batman with his young boy Ward, who looks like he's like 25.
Even as a kid, I never liked that show.
No, loosen up, man. It's just it's good, stupid fun. You don't have to overthink it. Just enjoy it for a little while. But we still do have one Kickstarter to talk about, and that was the one we brought up last week from Worcestershire, United Kingdom. Realize Minas Tirith on Indiegogo.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to check back in and see how it progressed. It still has 37 days to go. It's had 2,181 backers. The goal to get this started is £1.85 billion UK. Currently sits at 82,446 British pounds.
So it went up by about 10,000.
Actually, it went up by about a good, I think, 20 to 40,000 pounds.
Really? I thought it was like 70-something last time.
I'm pretty sure last time it was about 40-something. But it does have a bit of momentum to it. However, it doesn't quite have the momentum to meet its goal.
Yeah.
I love the fact that there's residential properties in their idea for this 1-to-1 scale fictional city. And they say that the tiers would vary from 1 to 5, from 2 to 5 stars, the higher star denoting higher quality. Size varies from 1 to 4 bedroom residences. I wonder if it has the same life expectancy of about 35 as it did in the Middle Ages.
Probably not.
This whole thing just seems insane. I'm worried because they talk about recreating this city as faithfully as possible. That means it wouldn't have things like police stations or fire stations, hospitals. There might be an old lady who would beat you with some lemongrass every time you were sick, but I don't know.
I'm thinking they mean structurally and not actually, as far as police force and medicine and so forth.
I could only guess. I mean, if they're very faithful, there's no quick way up this thing from what I can tell. You would have to run back and forth or in a circle. So
it would be a little challenging, especially for firefighting and stuff like that, being that there's like 7 walls that they've got to recreate. But
yeah, I couldn't see that happening. Okay, in our video game news, first up, Final Fantasy XIV has hit a milestone. They've actually logged up to 5 million player accounts. That doesn't have to do with...
Up to WoW.
Sort of. That doesn't include any free trials or free-to-play games that anyone set up. These are actual paid members. The other caveat, though, is that it doesn't mean that all of their player accounts are currently active. They've just had up to 5 million player accounts recently. Still, though, that is a very good sign for a game that, when it came out in 2012, was one of the worst MMOs ever recorded. Then in, I think, 2013, they completely reworked the system and made it into an MMO people actually want to play. So, congratulations to them for at least getting that far. Who knows, maybe a bunch of people left World of Warcraft to go play Final Fantasy XIV.
It's possible.
Yeah. And StarCraft 2 is finally getting a tournament mode. StarCraft 2 players have been asking Blizzard for variety when it comes to competitive multiplayer. There have been traditional ladder matches, but Blizzard has finally enabled a tournament mode in addition to overhauling macro mechanics. So the next patch for the Legacy of the Void beta will add automated tournaments and allow people to compete in both 3- and 6-round competitions through a computer-assisted system that's going to match up players of similar level.
Yeah, I'm still just pissed off that they eliminated LAN play. I think that kind of ruined the game for me.
It just means you can't yell at the guy across the room anymore. Now you got to yell at him through the net.
Yeah, it's still not that easy.
Well, there's a new book that argues that you should stop pretending that video games can't harm you. There's a video game critic called Simon Parkin. He's written a new book called Death by Video Game. And one of the last lines in the book is, quote, "No, video games won't save you. They might even kill you, and the jury is still very much out as to whether they improve or imperil the world," unquote. That's,
okay.
Yeah,
Everyone has their opinions.
Yeah, he said in a recent podcast interview of Shall We Play a Game, quote, "Once I started having the opportunity to write about video games for an audience that traditionally doesn't care about video games and thinks they're a waste of time, all the cliches, the tendency is to go, hey guys, video games are great. You guys should really take notice and slip into this advocacy role," he said. Whereas when you're writing for the people who are very familiar with video games and conversant in them, you allow yourself to be much more nuanced, or at least I did. That's the wrong approach. If we want video games to be taken seriously, then don't pretend they're all amazing, because they're not, and we all know that. Loads of them are terrible. Isn't it better? Don't you treat the medium with respect if you can say, some parts of these video games are incredible, and they moved me, and they taught me about the world, and they taught me about myself, and then some parts of them I'm really unclear on whether they're any good and whether they help anyone, or whether they actually depress the spirit in some way. And it's possible to hold these two thoughts at once if we're adults, unquote. And somebody is overthinking himself.
Well, his follow-up statement makes sense. I mean, don't sit there and just sing the praises of video games and say they're all awesome, because, quite frankly, some are absolute shit. But, yeah.
I don't know anybody that sits there and says all video games are awesome any more than anybody says all comics are awesome or all animes are awesome. Yeah. You know, there's all kinds of people out there that will shit within your genre of fandom just because you don't agree with their particular view of fandom.
Yeah.
You know, I think this guy is oversimplifying quite a bit. And besides which, yeah, it's bad if you sit around playing video games all day, but at the same time, you know, you can always stop, get up, and go do something.
True, you know, but I don't think that was the point he was trying to make.
It was one of his points, was that video games are killing us because they create a more sedentary lifestyle.
I could say that about a lot of things besides video games, but yeah.
But that all has to do with personal initiative.
True.
Anyway, he wrote a book.
Of course he did.
Yeah. EverQuest 2 is building a new server for shitty players.
The cheaters?
No. They have a server for players caught breaking the rules or just generally being a dick. It's called
Derunder.
The cheaters. No. People being dicks can be thrown into the server as well. You know, people who are toxic players.
Oh, okay.
It's a new server called Derunder. They're calling it the prison server. According to Holly Longdale in a forum post, quote, "Later this week we plan to release a server we're calling Derunder, which is a prison server. What does that mean exactly? Ultimately, players who are caught breaking our rules and disrupting EQ2 live server gameplay will be flagged for this server and no others. Ever. Characters on these accounts will be copied to Derunder and can never leave or transfer to another server," unquote.
Ooh.
So even if you make a new character, it's immediately routed to Derunder.
Yeah. And you also renege, or if you're sent to this server, you also won't get any customer service help from Daybreak. You will be shoved in there forever into the cold wilderness that is Derunder.
Congratulations, you're stuck with all the other assholes of the internet.
Yeah. You're not going to feel so powerful when you're in there with a bunch of other cheaters and hackers. There's also a little bit of a kerfuffle regarding League of Legends this week. I'm trying to understand what's going on because there was a post by somebody named Jeffrey Lynn, who is from Riot Games, And there was a new plan from the developer for 2015 season rewards. Jeffrey Lynn originally said that all League of Legends ranked players who receive any kind of chat restriction or temporary ban would not receive any of the season's 2015 rewards. Now Lynn is only saying that his statements applied to a much more specific subset of ranked players. According to Jeffrey Lynn's Twitter, quote, "Quick update, correcting my Ask.fm post in a second about season ranked rewards. Just got off a flight and saw a huge mistake in it. Players that have reformed and do not have chat or ranked restrictions by season's end will still get ranked rewards. However, players that have been game banned for 7 to 14 days for excessive toxicity at any point during the 2015 season will not get rewards." Unquote.
Okay, so it's a lot less broad.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you actually have a ban of 7 to 14 days for excessive dickishness, then you can't get season rewards at the end. It's kind of a sad statement that you actually have to implement you actually have to implement, anti-pusillanimous rules.
Yeah,
that's freaking bizarre.
It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me though, because anonymity just brings out the worst in people.
God, I want to point out some stuff, but I'd just be repeating myself. I took a character from the newsroom as my internet spirit animal, and I've actually managed to straighten out my posts on the internet. I'm nowhere near as venomous as I used to be. And I think it frustrates some people who still try to be when I approach them in this almost Zen Master format to my comments and start leaving facts instead of snark. I don't think they understand what to do with it. Speaking of esports, you remember when Corey Friesen, known as Semphis in the Counter-Strike Global Offensive, said that all players were on Adderall?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Australia was never mentioned as a focal point of, drugs in esports. But after talking to a bunch of players in multiple scenes, a writer for Kotaku, Alex Walker, discovered that local gamers also dabbled with external methods of performance enhancement. Apparently, Australia has quite a thriving black market of drugs in esports.
There's a joke in there about a prison island.
Oh, it's kind of disturbing. Bruce Dugan from Major League Gaming has said, quote, "Now that a lot of attention is being paid, it's something we'll look at for the 2016 season," unquote. Well, that's good. It's nice to know you're paying attention to it after somebody else mentions it. Nobody ever thought to even discuss the possibility. I mean, anything you do that involves money, somebody's going to try and find a way to take a shortcut to the top. It's an unfortunate piece of human nature. I don't understand why that never occurred to anybody before. Now, I have lost strange amount of hours to the original... I have lost strange amounts of hours to the original version of Dead or Alive Extreme.
Okay.
It's true. I enjoyed the game, not because of the TNA, but because there is a surprisingly good volleyball game stuck in the middle of it. The follow-up, Dead or Alive Extreme 2, the focus was less on the game and more about the cheesecake, so it really wasn't as much fun as you'd think it was. The reason why I bring all this up is because if demand is high enough, Tecmo's current Dead or Alive Extreme 3 may actually make it to Western shores. They've recently announced that for the PlayStation 4 and PS Vita, they're working on Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Fortune and Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Venus for the PS Vita. Word is that right now, DOA Extreme 3 will only be sold in the Asia region, including Japan. If demand calls for it, they may release a version of the game adjusted for North America and presumably Europe. Adjustments are being made to the power-up Soft Engine 2.0. Whoa. The PS Vita version will use the customized Soft Engine Lite. There will be elements that incorporate the touch panel and gyro sensor. Oh my god, I can hear fanboy wet dreams going off right now.
Yeah.
Spending time with your favorite characters has become richer than past entries in the series. They're thinking about various reward elements for players who devote themselves to the use of one character. There will be a camera mode. Suntans have been considerably powered up Does that mean you can get cancer in the game? Not every female character will be in the game. On August 20th, Koei Tecmo is going to release custom themes, including 15 heroines from the game, and the top 9 characters downloaded will be in the game. There are no plans to release character downloadable content. Oh, bullshit. That's how people make money these days.
Yeah.
You know, if they make the game, I will look into it.
You cannot tell me they're not going to be selling all kinds of different bathing suits, glasses, other various
accessories.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah. If it's a good, fun little sports game, I will look into it again. The fact that there were women all over it was kind of secondary to just a good game. But if it's another thing that's just all cheesecake, like some of the weird things have been coming out of Japan lately, I will pass on this faster than Tom Brady passes on his commitments. Now, in regards to the new game Star Wars Battlefront, it's been announced this week that there will be a special edition PS4 for the game. Have you seen it?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, it is a special edition with Darth Vader's face on the side of it, a controller with a special First Order or Empire-themed button arrangement, and you see, it also comes with what appears to be Star Wars Classics. I don't know if that means movies or some other thing, but if there's a special package that would make me consider a PS4, I gotta admit, this would be high up there. It's pretty nifty. The only thing that would make it better is if every time you slipped in a disc, it made that Darth Vader rasping wheeze sound. That would be awesome, but creepy, man. My 3-year-old would flip the frick out. You'd probably end up putting discs in and out of the thing just to make it breathe. I like the setup, though. It's.
I was gonna say we'll find how fast that gets annoying.
Yeah. The only thing about special edition consoles, as nice as they are to have, once you have them, there's really not much point beyond that. You're the only one that's going to know that you spent the extra $80 for that custom skin. It's not exactly something you can share online. Although, speaking of sharing, have you guys heard about the new console from China called the Ouye? O-U-Y-E?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That is amazing. Somebody in China has developed this new console that looks suspiciously like a PS4 with an Xbox One controller. It's actually on a Chinese Kickstarter, and you can back the console. You can pick one up for $100, actually. It looks like it's running on a modified version of Android. I'm on the website right now trying to discern where they're at in their level of funding. However, I can't discern anything. It is all in Chinese, so I'm just going to let that go. That's bold. I will say it's fucking bold.
Well, I guess it gives the Chinese something to play once they ban access to U.S. goods again.
Yeah, a bunch of Chinese knockoff games, too. Great. And last up in video game news, have you guys played Final Fantasy VII Reimagined?
No.
I would like to play this, however, it doesn't work in my current browser on Opera. I might have to change to something more conventional to make it work, and I don't know if it's really worth that. But they did release a YouTube as to what this thing would look like. And knowing you guys as well as I do, I went ahead and sent it for everybody to view.
Okay.
And there's Cloud and Tifa kicking ass in different screens, and there's a 2-player mode, it appears.
Oh, wow.
It's definitely a Flash game of some sort.
Yeah.
Barrett off
Barrett. Ifrit.
Yeah. Looks like a fun enough game.
Yeah, something like Streets of Rage or Final Fight. That's what it's reminded me of.
Streets of Midgard. It's cute enough, yeah. I have to look into finding another browser so I can take a look at that on my own time. From there, we move into Marvel Media News. We talk about Marvel projects that aren't on the comic book page. And the closer we get to the end of the year, the more the talk is going to ramp up in regards to Civil War. Thanks to D23, we already know that there's been a interesting footage. It seems to have the crowd on the edge of its seat, waiting for this movie to come out. And Anthony Mackie, as it turns out, is very good in interviews. He's the guy who plays the Falcon for Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
He told MTV News recently in regards to a question about the bond between Captain America and the Falcon, quote, "The relationship between the three characters is more so a bond of kindred friendship. My respect for Cap helps me to help him find Bucky because I know how much that means to him, knowing where he's come from and everything and what he's gone through to this point. It's more so of an understanding and respect than it is three guys chumming around and having a good time." Unquote. And Chris Evans, for his own part, said in regards to the relationship, quote, "You've got to understand, Cap coming off the last movie, Falcon's the one guy, having known the least in terms of history, he actually trusts the most. There's a really nice kinship between these two characters, and they do a really good job of picking up where we left off," unquote. So I don't know how much they're aware of the comic books, but at least as far as the actors and their parts go, it sounds like they have a really good grasp of where they sit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just not going to mention that he got his ass kicked by a guy that could shrink.
You can't mention that yet. You know, we got to get to that point later on, I'm sure. However, during their press junkets in regards to promoting this movie, now the principal photography did wrap up this week. Mm-hmm. Yahoo Movies actually sat down with Mackie and Chris Evans, and somebody pitched the idea of a buddy comedy between Cap and the Falcon.
Oh God!
And all of a sudden, Mackie just kind of took over. Quote, "We're working on that right now. We have appearances by the other two Chris's. Pratt comes in, Hemsworth comes in, ScarJo comes in and does this amazing Josephine Baker lounge thing in a banana skirt. It's pretty dope." I watched the video of him saying all this, and the entire time, Chris Evans is just laughing himself stupid. I don't think he expected Mackie to grab that football and run all the way with it. Before principal photography wrapped up, though, there were some interesting photos that came out about from the set, including one in particular that has a bunch of tongues waggling and the internet, in full rumor mode. Check this out. This is the actual photo from the set, and you can see it's Robert Downey Jr., his upper half clad in Iron Man armor, his lower half in motion capture gear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing that's got people's tongues waggling is that the armor he's wearing looks suspiciously like the Bleeding Edge armor. The Bleeding Edge armor came out during the Heroic Age phase of Marvel, and it's the one that all the gold parts of it are this weird nanotech that's stored in the marrow of Tony Stark's bones that he can mentally command up to his skin, and then the extra armor parts will fuse to it.
Huh.
It was very notable in a lot of Marvel promos back during I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm a little unclear when it comes to the timeline of the Heroic Age. It was kind of a quieter period in Marvel's comic book time while they were still working on the Avengers stuff. But I'll send you guys an image so you can see what the Bleeding Edge looks like. You probably remember it from a lot of ads right after the Dark Reign ended. But as you can see, it has multiple repulsor points in it.
Yeah, okay.
So it wouldn't be surprising that he went for an upgrade, considering now he's got to consider for the first time he's not working with superheroes, he's fighting against a bunch of them. Especially when you're dealing with things like Captain America and the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
You got to go
that's
big.
actually Tony Stark in that picture, though. It looks like
I'm pretty sure that's Robert Downey Jr. You know, if it was just a stunt guy, they probably wouldn't have needed to worry about his face at all. They would have just wrapped him up. Believe it or not, there's already a meme, though.
Oh.
There is already a Civil War meme. Have you guys seen the picture of Sebastian Shaw and Anthony Mackie running in costume during a scene?
No.
Okay, well, take a look at this. This image popped up on the internet as of last week. And you can see the crew and people just watching in the background as they're running. You know, they're probably being filmed from the side or at a 3/4 angle.
Right.
Well, this has already started a host of jokers out there who cut Mackie and Shaw out of this picture and then start sticking them into a lot of infamous movie scenes. Like this one. You'll see them running with Harrison Ford because there's something big chasing them. Did you know that Sebastian Shaw and Anthony Mackie also were on set with Tom Hanks a while ago? It's amazing.
God.
But that's not the only thing. They were either in a famous amusement park or in the Savage Land. I'm not quite sure about the next picture. It's questionable.
Big lizard with big teeth. Okay.
Well, it's okay. The Winter Soldier and the Falcon were also in a period piece. They appeared in the Caribbean for a couple scenes.
Oh, he's gonna get clotheslined.
But I've often wondered what Mackie sounds like when he's singing, because they were also in a musical together. That wasn't the only one. Did you know that they were also in that scene surrounded by speedsters? It's amazing what you see in the blooper reels. But it was also an international shoot, too, because here's a scene that they filmed in New York. Giant marshmallow man chasing him. But that wasn't the only thing chasing him. There was also a horde of raiders chasing him through the desert. It was a very odd thing.
Wow.
So, as you can see,
of these.
Yeah, they've been everywhere. Evangeline Lilly, even though she's not currently cast in the Civil War, she apparently has not been resting on her laurels. Marvel has her busy, and she mentioned that she's already been sized up for her own supersuit.
Cool.
No secret, at the end of Ant-Man, they teased the appearance of the new Wasp suit, which was apparently made for her. But she hasn't put it on, but they did take a lot of precise measurements of her to put her in the suit. So I think you can count on, if she's in Civil War at all, she's just in Civvy. She's not in the costume, so I wouldn't get your hopes up. But that does mean it's probably on the way. I'm guessing Infinity War is where they'll make that a big deal, or Ant-Man 2, whichever comes first.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the only thing that's working in the future. They've already released some test images of the new suit for Season 2 of Daredevil. That didn't take any time at all, did it?
No.
It's not a big image, and it's just a couple pictures of some test shots they took of Charlie Cox while he wore the suit, probably prior to filming a scene. Take a look. There are some subtle differences from this to the prior costume.
Wow, a lot more red.
I was going to say a lot more black.
Contrast.
Or a lot more, or not quite as dark a red, and although maybe that's just the lighting.
I think they added a lot of black. I mean, the face of the helmet wasn't black at the end of the first season.
True.
And they added a lot of black sections to the center of the armor instead of just the trim of it.
Yeah, like I said, they decided to put some contrast with it this time.
Yeah. Or I wonder if he picked up a special version of his costume for some particular adventure. Because I did hear that the guy who was cast as Gladiator or Potter, the costume designer, he is appearing in Season 2.
Cool.
What his role will be, I'm a little unclear on, but he will be there.
Maybe Frank Castle went to him for some gear.
That could be. They are marching forward with the next in the Netflix series, though, now that Jessica Jones is very near its October release, whenever that will be. Deadline.com reported this week that Alfre Woodard from The Last Ship and True Blood has been cast to play the villain Black Mariah in the Luke Cage series. Black Mariah is described as a woman with a real-life name of Minetta, who is a powerful woman in local politics. So it sounds like Luke Cage won't just be a street-level hero, he'll be fighting the man, who just happens to be Black Mariah, so go figure. Doesn't say she has any ability, she may just be a crime boss in this one. There is word, though, that a major player could be exiting Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. by the end of Season 3.
Oh, really?
Yes. Ming-Na Wen may be leaving the show.
Wow.
According to Ming-Na Wen, and when she talked to TV Guide recently, she said, quote, "In any situation where someone is so devoted to their work as May was, but then realizing over the last 2 years that S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't really what she dedicated her life to. There was definitely a lot of corruption to S.H.I.E.L.D., as well as uncertainty now with the Inhumans being brought in by Coulson. I think it's going to be figuring out her final decision in Season 3, and I think Andrew will probably play a part in it," unquote. Andrew is the character of Melinda May's ex-husband.
Right.
It's a good point, though, considering her experience with Inhumans. It hasn't been positive yet, with the exception of Skye.
Right, and even that was
Mixed.
rocky.
Heavily mixed.
Yeah.
But that may have to do with the other piece of news that came out this week regarding Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Remember the spin-off that was rumored, but then ABC said, okay, fuck it, we're not doing that right now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was announced this week that ABC has ordered a pilot for a series titled Mockingbird.
Uh-huh.
So it appears that they are going forward with a spin-off, not centered around Nick Hunter and Bobby Morse, but just one around Bobby Morse as the Mockingbird. So it could be, if Ming-Na Wen is leaving Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe she's going to end up as the runner of whatever company Bobby Morse will end up working for. After all, Bobby Morse in the comics has worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. several times, but she's also worked independently as a spy. She's also been an Avenger, too, but it doesn't look like that's going to occur this time around.
Well, there's also the possibility that she winds up working for her mom and Bobby goes there.
That's true. Hugh Jackman has been talking a little bit about what fans would like to see in Wolverine 3, his last role as Logan. And he has said that in the for their third movie, quote, there were a lot of calls for Victor Creed to come back, unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can imagine.
A lot of people would like to see the old fight between Wolverine and Sabretooth happen again. But he also mentioned, quote, I must admit I was quite heartened by a number of people saying, please don't make it the last, but I'm really excited about this last one. And if you're a comic book fan, then the words Berserker Rage came up a lot. So if you know Wolverine, you'll understand, unquote.
Oh boy, he's gonna...
Yeah, for the uninitiated, the Berserker Rage is what happens to Wolverine when he loses all of his sense of self and pretty much turns into a small feral animal and cuts anything that moves. It's happened several times in comic books, and most of the time it isn't pretty. It often ends up with an X-Men getting stabbed at least once.
Mm-hmm.
So, take that for what you will. If there's actually going to be Berserker Rage, that'd be different, considering Wolverine's last couple of adventures have been very PG-13.
Yeah.
There has been word, though, from the set of X-Men Apocalypse, and it's an interesting one. They're actually bringing back another character for their rebooted role in this new X-Men series.
That is?
The Blob.
Uh-huh.
Oh!
Except, if you remember last time the Blob appeared, it was a man in a fat suit. It was Kevin Durand in 2009's X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
They didn't hire a man in a fat suit. They hired a 540-pound French-Canadian actor.
Whoa!
Let me see. What was his name? His name was Benjamin Malatre Barreau. Benjamin Barreau is his name. And there won't be any CGI or fat suit. He is a 540-pound man who did the role himself. He even showed a picture of a commemorative keychain he got for his 4 days' worth of work as the Blob.
Huh.
So 4 days is not a big role, but it sounds like he had more than a couple scenes.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what the role of it is. And he eats somebody. You never know.
As long as it isn't the Wasp.
Oh, ew. And last up this week, man, Square Enix Play Arts Kai tends to be some of the weirdest action figures I've ever seen. Some of them are really cool, some of them can be really odd.
Yeah.
Which one this time?
Captain America.
Really?
Yeah, I sent it for you guys to look at. It's Captain America in a, I guess you could say, variation of his movie-style armor. There's no wings on his head or anything. As much as it's interesting, it's very angular. It almost looks like he stole his costume directly from Tony Stark and painted it. I don't quite know what to say. It's got the right beats of the costume. However, just the aggressive, sharp angles on this thing are kind of off-putting to me personally. The shield is a little weird too.
It, but it definitely does look like a more up-armored version of his movie costume.
Those stars on his knees look aggressive.
Actually, they're above his knees.
No, they're above his knees.
Oh yeah, they're on his low thigh. Yeah, this doesn't work for me. It's very weird.
I'm a little more
some of it
off-put
doesn't.
by his actual shield, although it actually looks, like a more modern take on a shield.
Doesn't look like it would. Doesn't look like it would sail well though, with all that extra weight on top.
No,
Yeah.
not quite as aerodynamic.
Nope.
This seems very much almost an anime character.
Well, it's Japanese, so it's to be
Yeah.
expected. It's kind of par for the course. From there, we'll move into DC media news. We talk about the DC products that end up on the TV screen, online, on the movie screens, and all the other stuff that people just they either love it or they hate it. There doesn't seem to be a lot of in-between when it comes to this stuff. First off, Michael Shannon. He was the one who played General Zod in Man of Steel.
Okay.
And it's been rumored that he had some kind of role beyond just being a corpse when it comes to Batman v Superman. Well, he actually released a couple more details about his experience on the set. He still didn't name character names, but he had a very interesting story. It involved him getting trapped in a closet. Quote, I was in my costume, and I couldn't use my fingers because in the sequel, I have flippers instead of hands. So I had these wax flippers on my fingers, and I couldn't open the door, and I hear Zack Snyder, the director, being like, where's Shannon? Where the fuck is he? And the whole crew was standing around. I was like knocking on the door with my flippers. Let me out of here! Unquote. He was soon discovered by a set worker, and he said, quote, he was actually paying attention to what was going on. He came over and he opened the door for me. Otherwise, I would have gotten fired, unquote. So he had wax flippers on his hands. Now, there's several possibilities of what's going on. Maybe he was Lagoon Boy. Maybe he was Aqualad. Some people are saying this lends credence to the idea that somebody was monkeying around with the DNA in the corpse of General Zod and created Doomsday for the movie.
No.
I have no idea. DC lore is admittedly a little bit weak in my mental sphere there, but I'm still worried about the amount of characters they're throwing into this film. It sounds like there's going to be a lot happening in a 2-hour span. I'm guessing it's 2 hours. Maybe it's longer than that. I don't know.
Well, considering all the names that are going to appear in Civil War.
It's just another thing for Ben Affleck to get Batman over. There was also a picture that was released recently from the set of The Suicide Squad. I'm trying to figure out if this is in character or not, but it's an image of Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn tattooing someone's arm.
I heard from an article that she tattooed every member of the team there.
I'm trying to figure out what exactly is happening here, because if it was just the actors tattooing each other, why would they go in costume, let alone it looks like Margot Robbie has a special effects cut on her head. Then there's the idea that maybe this was filmed on scene. Maybe this was supposed to be some kind of bonding moment for the Suicide Squad. I really don't understand what I'm looking at. All I can tell is from the color of that arm that's being tattooed, it's not Will Smith.
I'm trying to see what it spells. It looks like SWA, but I can't tell what the last letter is.
Oh, it's definitely not a G, so she's not swagging the guy's arm.
Oh, that's a W-A. I can't see what the first letter is.
I think that's an S.
Maybe it's swap. Maybe she wants to swap with somebody. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that this is something where they all just decided to tattoo each other. If it is, I would think there'd be more photos released on the net.
No, I'm thinking it's just more of the actress is just doing that.
I think it's a scene. I think it's a movie scene of some sort. I just don't know what it is.
Is it just me, or is he like copping a feel?
It looks like he might be. Not only that, we have another image of Adam Copeland in Season 2 of The Flash. If you remember, Adam Copeland was a man formerly known as Edge in the World Wrestling Federation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
And he was cast as Atom Smasher for Season 2, the Earth 2 hero. Here's an image of what he looks like on set. That looks uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know many people that have a neck that tall. I don't even know if he could turn his head left or right in that thing.
Yeah.
That headgear is way too big.
It looks like Michael Bay brings you The Flash.
Not
No,
enough
it would be
explosions.
CG if it was Michael Bay. Yeah, and there will be
Not
CG
enough
explosions.
explosions.
Maybe that's why maybe that's what the neck color is for. Maybe there's an explosion going on in there. That's not the only news we have when it comes to DC media. In regards to the Flash's sister show, The Arrow, turns out they're changing the name of the city.
Yeah, I saw that.
If you recall, since the series started, I think 4 seasons ago, they've been calling it Starling City, which is a little different from the comic book version. Now the character playing Quentin Lance, the police chief, on Twitter this week, he showed off a badge showing the comic book name of the city, Star City. Apparently, there was some kind of off-screen memorandum or vote when it came to city politics, and now they're calling it the original name of the city, Star City, again. Which is rather inconvenient when you think about all the things that would have to be changed. You'd have to put up new plaques on every city administration building, hand out new badges to every cop, send out new letterhead to everybody who's been using city letterhead. That's an expensive prospect for just to change the name of a city. Wonder why the sudden change.
I don't know.
And the only thing I can think of off the top of my head, which I see highly unfeasible, is they want to disassociate from all the crap that's happened to them in the last 4 years, so they say change the name. So
I think it
don't
may
know.
be something more centrally focused than you think, because there may be a bunch of people who are watching Arrow curious about comics and wondering what the fuck Star City is. So they may be just aligning things to make it easier on people who are making a jump from TV to comics or comics to TV. We do have some news about a show that drives me fucking batshit, and that's Gotham. A lot of people out there still like it for reasons that mystify me. But they have announced that Michelle Ventimiglia has been cast to play the DC villain Firefly. For the first time, to my knowledge, there will be a female Firefly in Gotham's history. Now, Michelle Ventimiglia, is she related to Milo Ventimiglia from Heroes?
Who?
Milo Ventimiglia. He played the ogre in season 1 of Gotham. He was also the one who played Peter in the Heroes TV show.
I don't know.
It's an awfully unique name. So I was wondering if maybe she was related to Milo Ventimiglia.
What was her name?
Michelle Ventimiglia. There's not a whole lot of information out there about her that I know of anyway. So I was just curious. But that's not the only thing that came out as far as Gotham. The star of the show, Ben McKenzie, who plays Jim Gordon throughout this mess, he says that they won't make the same mistakes they made in the first season. Quote, "I think we made a mistake relatively early on in trying to introduce a villain and take care of that villain in one episode. Catch them, send them to Arkham, do whatever. That was just a mistake. We should never have done it. We were ordered for 16 episodes. We were going to have one break and come back and finish the rest in terms of airing. Then we added 6 more, so we had to break again, and then we had to come back again. And it's hard for the audience to follow that many changes in a series in terms of when it's airing and when it's not," unquote.
That does seem
That
rather
could help.
poorly planned.
Yeah. And he said they're going to do more serialized arcs. Quote, "The audience really wants to understand who these people are and live with them. Sit with them and enjoy them, whether they're evil or good. They are entertaining, so what we're doing in Season 2, it's really kick-ass. I think it's exactly what the fans want to see," unquote. I don't know. I don't know if I want to sit down with most of these characters for extended periods, because all they do is beat you over the head with lame puns to remind you who they're going to be. That's always been my biggest frustration about the show, is that it is so blatantly obvious in his writing when each character appears who they expect them to be later down the road. But then again, you remind yourself that Bruce Wayne is only 8, so none of them are going to be villains for quite a while. Or at least not super villains anyway. So, it drives me nuts. I'd never thought about getting a Batburger before, but I guess that's possible if we go to Malaysia.
Huh?
Okay.
There's a DC Comics superhero cafe in Malaysia. Actually, there's more than one. It is a retail cafe that serves food based on DC properties. You can actually get yourself a Dark Knight burger. And as weird as that is, I don't know if I would eat it necessarily, because it has one of those charcoal buns where they infuse charcoal into the dough to make it black. Take a look at this. I even put a yellow bat symbol and cheese on top of it. I don't know if it's cheese. That might be Velveeta. But I gotta admit, I mean, you can get Batman Dark Knight mini Wagyu beef sliders with nachos. You can get a bat waffle complete with like this sugary and chocolate batarang on top of a vanilla ice cream chunk on top of a mini waffle. You can even get Green Lantern tea, which is really interesting because it's this green tea. They use the foam in it to create the Green Lantern symbol in the middle. It's kind of bizarre. I would actually like to try that. Take a look.
Huh.
Nice.
You can get Superman coffee. The menus have the JLA emblazoned on them. You know, it's one of those things where individually it doesn't look great to me, but take a look at this. This is a table full of DC-themed food. I would actually like to sit down over this group of plates and start talking to people. It's both a conversation piece and it's interesting. You can even get a bat pizza. I don't quite know what to say about that. You can get pancakes with a bat symbol on them, large sandwiches with Wonder Woman symbol.
Well, where was Gotham supposed to be?
New Jersey.
Okay, so that's close to Chicago.
No, it's not.
Why
It's
do you
on
care
the
if
same
it's
side of the country? Well, because Chicago pizza. It's pretty famous. Gotham pizza.
Oh, okay. I was about to say this is all happening in Malaysia, though. They still haven't opened one of these stateside.
No, I know that.
I guess my question though now is, knowing that, why haven't they? I'm not saying you have to proliferate the country with like a chain of these places, but you'd think like one or two in major cities would be a good idea.
Especially when it holds a Comic-Con.
Oh God, yes.
Possible copyright? I don't know. Who knows how much Malaysia had to pay in order to get the rights to do this?
I don't know. I just think it's damn interesting. You know, goodness knows, if somebody came up with an X-Men themed restaurant, the food would be shit, but you'd find me out there every other week.
With a rotating menu.
Yeah, or a phasing menu, if you will. From there, we'll move into general media news. We talk about the nerdy projects that are not Marvel or DC related. This just came up a few hours ago, and I had to add this because it fucking intrigued me. When it comes to Star Wars Rogue One, we've seen the recent set picture that shows most of the non-digitized cast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just found out one of the villains appearing in Star Wars Rogue One, and this is a callback to A New Hope, is Grand Moff Tarkin.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you remember, Grand
He's the guy
Moff
that
Tarkin
developed the Death Star.
He's the one who ordered
and was
them
in
to blow
command
up,
of it.
Yeah, he's the one that ordered them to blow up Alderaan, and he led the assault on Yavin.
Yeah, okay.
You know, the evil Englishman. Well, he was played by an actor named Peter Cushing, okay? Here's the part that's interesting. Peter Cushing was 81. He died of prostate cancer, but he's going to appear in Star Wars Rogue One.
Huh, okay.
They're digitizing his face, and they're going to stick it on a proxy actor, and they're going to recreate his role as a younger Grand Moff Tarkin for Rogue One.
Oh, they could do that for Schwarzenegger in the Terminator's franchise.
So when I heard that, I thought it's interesting. Peter Cushing's going to have a second run at the role that, I don't want to say made him famous, because he was all over horror films before Star Wars, but definitely the role that made him infamous. So I just thought that was interesting to throw in.
Mm-hmm.
We also had a leak when it came to the Star Wars The Force Awakens toys, and this leak involved a character that I don't think anybody had heard of prior, named Constable Zuvio.
Not familiar.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar either. He looks like an alien in some kind of desert gear, so I'm guessing he's from the planet of Jakku. He just looks kind of like a generic, I guess you could say, desert dweller. He looks like something that might be Tatooine worthy, frankly. So it's another hint as to what's coming out in the film, but anything beyond that, it's hard for me to say. I mean, I'm having a little trouble with the item underneath. You see those three parts underneath the Flame Trooper, Finn, and underneath Constable Zuvio?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there a Build-A-Figure going on there?
Yeah, it's
It looks
right
like
there on
it.
the side.
Huh.
some kind of droid, or
Yeah.
maybe
It
a
looks
type of a speeder. No,
It
definitely.
looks like a
it's some-
drone of some sort.
Yeah, it looks like a labor unit.
Yeah. Well, we got a new picture from the set of Preacher. You remember the series of Preacher, right? The comic book series?
Yeah, it was rather disturbing.
Yes.
I thought it was entertaining, though.
Mm.
Well, we got an image from the set, and take a look at this, because one of the character actors is in it.
Oh God.
Yep, that's the first view we've got of what Arseface will look like in the series. It's creepy. It's one of those things I didn't want to see up front, but now that I see it, I'm more curious about the show now.
I'll be honest. That's a lot. What they have in this picture is a lot easier than what they had in the comic books.
Yeah, he has better hair.
He has a nose in this one.
And when it comes to nerdy TV, a book has been licensed for a new sci-fi show on TV. NBC, or CBS, I should say, has bought out the rights to Ian McDonald's novel Luna New Moon. This actually sounds like an interesting thriller story. The synopsis of the book is, quote, "The moon wants to kill you. Whether it's being unable to pay your per diem for your allotted food, water, and air, or you just get caught up in a fight between the moon's ruling corporations, the Five Dragons. You must fight for every inch you want to gain in the moon's near-feudal society, and that's just what Adriana Corda did. As leader of the moon's newest dragon, Adriana has wrested control of the moon's helium-3 industry from the Mackenzie Metal Corporation and fought to earn her family's new status. Now, at the twilight of her life, Adriana finds her corporation, Corta Helio, surrounded by the many enemies she made during her meteoric rise. If the Corta family is to survive, Adriana's 5 children must defend their mother's empire from her many enemies, and each other," unquote.
Making a movie out of this?
TV show.
Okay.
I'm
That sounds
interested.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I worry about CBS. Their version of storytelling and mine usually differ a bit. Man, I wish V was here, because we got images, thanks to Yahoo Games, from the set of Star Trek III Beyond. And I don't know if these are new costumes throughout the ship, but it looks like they've issued Starfleet officers new adventuring costumes, as well as an image of a new alien that I've never seen before, and I really don't know who the hell this is. Meaning I don't know who the actress is. The makeup job is impressive, though. It's otherworldly enough. This white and black pattern, I like that a lot.
Huh.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the actors who play Kirk and Chekhov in the films in their new Star Trek uniforms. Or I guess you could say their adventuring uniforms. I took a look at this, and I was staring at it, trying to figure out why it bothered me, and after a couple minutes, I realized they're missing their Veritech pilot helmets.
Actually, I almost went to Enterprise, but yeah, your analogy is a lot better.
Yeah, they must be some kind of off-world adventure stuff, because here's a picture of Simon Pegg in something much closer to traditional Star Trek. You know, the same red shirt and the black slacks and the leather short boots. You know, I kind of like the jacket thing more. It's interesting. Although every time I see it, I just start hearing the theme to Robotech in the back of my skull. That's going to bother me for a bit now.
I'm okay with it.
Now, here's a phrase I never thought I'd utter. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the new Masters of the Universe movie.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, they haven't shot a scene yet. They haven't cast anybody yet. But they've added a writer that could actually make this very fucking cool. Christopher Yost has been signed to take over the writing duties of the Masters of the Universe film. Christopher Yost wrote the scripts for Thor: The Dark World, Thor: Ragnarok, and Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Really?
Yeah, that's not a bad set of things to fall back on when it comes to your writing biography.
Yeah.
So they've got him working on the script. That's really not bad. Now, if only you can make a gigantic green talking cat sound interesting, we might have something here.
That's if they decide to include him in the movie.
You know he's going to be riding around in a giant cat. It's just whether or not it talks is the interesting part.
I don't know. They didn't have him in the first one.
That was their mistake. Anything would have been better than the Skeletor they got. I wish I had a ton of money right now, though, because there's an auction getting ready to go off in England. The prop store is hosting a live auction in London that includes screen-used props from films like The Empire Strikes Back, Superman, The Fifth Element, X-Men, Star Trek, and a lot fucking more. There's also on-screen used props from Armageddon, Moon, Return of the Jedi, X2, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. They even have the helmet that was used on screen for the Rocketeer.
Huh.
Oh, damn.
No, get this, dude. The item that I see here from their examples from the Return of the Jedi, they have the skull cap the actor who played Darth Vader wore after they took off that helmet. And you see all those scars on the top of his head? They have that cap.
Oh, that's intact? Damn.
Yeah, they have Wolverine's claws from X2. They have the letter that was sent to Harry Potter that invited him to Hogwarts. They have this creepy head from Poltergeist. They even have the gun that Bruce Willis used in The Fifth Element, as well as his multipass. They even have a sun-faded, near fully intact Stormtrooper helmet.
Damn.
And a couple the biggest item, though, that is, or two of the biggest items right now on this list of stuff to be sold, is an Ambassador-class starship model miniature from Star Trek The Next Generation, expected to go between 40 and 60,000 pounds. They also have Superman's underwater tunic from Superman 1978, 25 to 30,000 pounds. They have the Terminator's special effects crane chase jacket from Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, 4 to 6,000 pounds. Wolverine's or Hugh Jackman's claws from X2 X-Men United, 4 to 6,000 pounds. But the one that's probably going to fetch the most money by a country mile, they have the science officer costume from the Star Trek TV show from 1966, worn by Leonard Nimoy for 50 to 70,000 pounds expected.
Wow.
Damn. Yeah.
You know there's some sick fan who says, I'm going to buy that so I can find some sweat and clone him.
Sheldon. God damn it.
There's also an image from the Ghostbusters set, which is oddly the most joyous thing I've seen all week. They have a picture of Chris Hemsworth in his role on this new Ghostbusters film as the group's secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Except he's riding the motorcycle that's been identified as the Ecto-2, and he has this odd, joyous look on his face with these nerdy glasses. Look at this. This is the most un-Thor I have ever seen him look.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And there's something about the expression on his face that's a mixture of just sheer joy at riding this mini bike and, God, I hope this ends soon. I love the picture, though. He looks so self-satisfied.
I wonder if he's supposed to play the nerdy, the super nerdy guy.
Well, yeah, he's picking up for Janine.
Yeah. There's also some images that have been released of character designs from the new Disney CG movie, Moana. It's supposed to have the first Islander princess for Disney.
Mm-hmm.
We actually saw a couple images of what the character looks like, but there have been a couple images already released, so there wasn't a terrible amount of surprise to me, except for the idea that it seems like Moana has some kind of limited control over water. That I did not know about. But here's the thing that got me, was that I was trying to figure out which of these images that Dwayne Johnson was supposed to be playing. Remember, he was supposed to play some kind of deity in this movie. And obviously it's voice only. I think I figured out which one it is. They haven't named the character, although he's got a gigantic fish hook that looks like it looks like a goddamn anchor. Take a look at this character design. I think I figured it out.
That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
It even slightly looks like him. I don't mean the tattoos. I mean that wide jaw and that weird smile the character's got.
Yeah, I know, the whole thing.
Last up in general media news, I just watched the movie today of What We Do in the Shadows. Remember that mockumentary about lives of vampires in New Zealand?
No.
It had this hilarious trailer about a bunch of vampires trying to live relatively normal lives in New Zealand. You know, the documentary crew supposedly got a signed release, and they were allowed to come in as long as they wore crucifixes, and everybody agreed not to eat them. It was this interesting little slice of life comedy. It wasn't the funniest thing I'd ever seen, but it was a good, entertaining romp for a few minutes. They just the co-writer and co-director of this film, Jermaine Clement, who also co-starred in it, has confirmed that they're making a sequel to this mockumentary. Word is, this one may have to do more with the relationship between the vampire characters and their werewolf neighbors.
I have no interest.
After watching the first movie, I have interest. There was this weird, dry comedy that was just kind of funny, watching vampires argue about dishes and who is supposed to vacuum what, and the weird code of conduct they have when it comes to eating people. Let alone their Nosferatu neighbor in the frickin' basement was just creepy as sin. Okay, we will jump into Marvel comic news. We'll talk about the Marvel properties that will end up on printed pages. The biggest news this week when it comes to Marvel Comics was the fact that in, I think it's October, Marvel's announced that they're doing cosplay variants to a lot of their key series.
Yeah, I saw that.
Thanks to IO9, we actually have a gallery to look at of the various cosplay covers, and some of these are really good. The story says it's supposed to be in September, but I'm pretty sure most of these series aren't going to debut until October. These are the number ones after the Secret Wars winds down. It's rare to see a She-Hulk cosplayer, so I was curious when that was the first one up there. The all-new Inhumans with Yaya Han on the cover, I almost want to set fire to. That's my first response for some reason. The Spider-Man is pretty good. I've seen people comment that this is the guy cosplaying on the cover of Astonishing Ant-Man #1 is the first time they've ever found Ant-Man sexy in their lives. They've got a Captain America, Captain Marvel, Daredevil, Doctor Strange. The young Jean Grey is really good, although you can kind of see the details in that high green there that looks like taped on. Gamora, Iron Man, Lady Thor, Male Thor. That's a really good Miss Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
The Kamala Khan Miss Marvel, anyway. I like the Nova, too. Spider-Gwen is really good. The Spider-Woman is really good. That's a great recreation of that costume.
Oh, Wasp.
You got the Wasp and the Uncanny Avengers, the Black Bolt on the Uncanny Inhumans. That's a good list. I wonder how many people will buy these variants, though. This is kind of untested territory when it comes to comics.
Yeah.
But also, when it comes to Marvel comic news, there is a special coming out for S.H.I.E.L.D.'s 50th anniversary, the Mockingbird special. And it's been revealed that there will be a brand new character coming out in that comic, the Red Widow. The Red Widow is, like I said, brand spanking new. This character has never appeared before in any format in Marvel Comics. It does say in the synopsis that this character will have a connection to the Black Widow, although it's tangential. Where the Black Widow was forcibly recruited for the Red Room project that transformed her into an assassin in the Soviet government. The Red Widow wasn't forcibly conscripted, she volunteered. I sent you guys what the image of the Red Widow is. It looks like she doesn't have stingers, she has electro swords.
Kind of makes you wonder where the hell they hid this character.
I don't know. But considering how comic book writing happened, she could be 50 years old and just debut for all we know. You know, comic book characters tend to age very slowly.
Yeah. Or they could do the Winter Soldier treatment.
And nobody's heard of her because she's just that good.
Yeah. But one of the other big stories when it comes to Marvel Comics this week is that the Fantastic Four is officially homeless.
Yep.
Back's building got sold.
That's the weird part. Yes, it did, actually. As it turns out, the Baxter Building is not the Baxter Building anymore. It is the headquarters of Parker Industries. Yep, Peter Parker, in his new role as a corporate giant with Spider-Man publicly known as his bodyguard, has bought out the Baxter Building, and that's where he has most of his gear, it looks like, in his U.S. headquarters. And according to the cover of Amazing Spider-Man number 3 from the as a result of the Secret Wars reboot, the Human Torch is rather upset.
That's my house.
It was his house. He couldn't help it if Reed didn't pay bills. The fucking super genius, not an accountant.
I'm just kind of worried how much
Sue was
equipment.
paying the bills.
Well, she may be dead.
I'm just kind of wondering how much equipment Peter actually had to put in there, considering Reed Richards left a lot of shit behind.
It's one of those questions from Secret Wars that we're not going to know until the series is over. Marvel's doing a very good job of keeping a lot of secrets as to how that's going to shake out. And there is still not hide nor hair in any previews of the regular versions of Reed Richards or Susan Richards in any of these books. I'm starting to wonder if they may have ended up annihilated as a result of everything that occurred. Because if you remember,
Doom around?
you saw an image of something that looked like Doom, but we still have not officially seen Dr. Doom in anything. He's been listed in one book, but we still haven't seen him yet. And, God, if you remember, towards the end of Secret Wars number 1, Susan Richards and her kids were annihilated as a result of being caught in the space between dimensions there.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm
Which
really
is kind
starting
of
to
the
wonder.
ultimate FU to Franklin in a way.
Yeah. You're so overpowered, we have to just fucking annihilate you. It's also been announced that as a result of All New Inhumans, we knew that Crystal was getting a role in it. The character who was enamored with Johnny Storm, married to Quicksilver, and is a princess in the Inhumans royal house. Well, she's not a character in Uncanny Inhumans, or All New Inhumans. She's leading the team.
Huh.
The All New Inhumans in particular is supposed to focus on the complications that come from the global unleashing of what's called New Humans. One of the storylines from Marvel had this cloud of Terrigen mist that is just floating over the planet, and it's activating latent Inhumans against their will. So there's nobody to take the time to assess the person that might get powers and find out if they're ready for it. Those are being called New Humans. So it's the job of Crystal's team of Inhumans to find them and find out if they're ready for what's coming. To go with it, though, she's getting a new costume, which is kind of unusual. Even when Crystal was an Avenger, she didn't get a new costume. But she got a new haircut, too. I know this is going to drive fanboys insane because there's not as much room to put that giant circle on the back of her head now. It's a good redesign.
Mm-hmm.
At least in my opinion.
The original colors, but
They kept most of the original design, too, when it comes to the black trim. They just added more to the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
I have no context. I don't know what she looked like prior.
Well, actually, they changed the bright yellow to more of a orangish, but yeah.
That's actually in keeping with a lot of her more recent appearances. The difference, though, is definitely the haircut. She always had long hair, and her hair grew in this weird pattern where she had a black stripe running around basically ear level, and then somehow her hair would, I guess, recolor itself. So she always had this black circle at the back of her hair, too. I sent you an image of one of her more recent appearances.
Oh, okay.
It looks like they kept the black stripe, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I like the new design.
Yeah, I think the short hair is more because she's command.
It may just be one. I think it's also one of those things that's necessary when you're taking a character in a new direction. Sometimes you got to change everything about it so you have this idea that it's not the same character you've grown up with.
Mm-hmm.
But Crystal as a character has always had an impressive power set, but I don't think it's ever really been played with very well in comics. She can move heat from one region to another. She can... Oh, wait. Actually, I think I have that wrong. Crystal's power is elemental in nature. She has enhanced reflexes, strength, speed, and endurance. She does hydrokinesis, pyrokinesis, aerokinesis, and geokinesis. She can control all elements.
Yep.
But can she metal bend?
Well, even the Avatar couldn't do that, so...
Well, last up when it comes to Marvel comic news, Greg Pak is talking more about the job he's doing with the Totally Awesome Hulk, the new series coming out post-Secret Wars, where there's a new character running around as the Hulk who apparently is enjoying life, whereas Bruce Banner was kind of lamenting it. Greg Pak said, quote, I've been writing work-for-hire comics for 11 years now, so I've said goodbye to a bunch of characters over the years, and that's the way it should be. These legacy characters thrive when different creators come on board to breathe new life into them every few years. And we creators thrive when we stretch our wings and try new things all the time. So I said goodbye to the Hulk without regrets a few years back, particularly since my editors and Marvel gave me so much room and so many years to tell a genuinely epic series of stories that let me fully explore our huge themes of anger and family. When we were done, and it was pretty glorious and tremendously satisfying. Sure, I had other Hulk stories in the back of my head that I thought would be fun to explore someday, but it was time for me to work on other things. And then a few months ago, Hulk editor Mark Panacea called me up and said 3 words, and I was back in. I can't reveal what those 3 words were just yet, but they instantly opened up a whole new world of possibilities in my brain. A whole new frontier of Hulk stories that would totally be in keeping with the great traditions of the character, while going places no Hulk stories have ever gone before. So I'm not coming back to try to relive old glories. I'm jumping in at the deep end with an entirely new challenge and adventure, which feels like the very best way to come back to a character that I've loved so much for so long, unquote. And the interviewer at Comic Book Resources decided to ask about the title of the Totally Awesome Hulk, suggesting that this character enjoys the transformation the same way Jennifer Walters does as She-Hulk. And he said, quote, yep, this new Hulk absolutely loves being the Hulk and plans to be the best Hulk ever. And that just might create a massive problem for everyone else in the Marvel Universe. To give you a sense of how far this new Hulk goes, he actually drives She-Hulk crazy. It's a huge amount of fun to write, but the stakes are sky high. Big fun, big action, big emotion, and big drama. All my favorite stuff, unquote.
This makes me want to think that this Hulk is definitely some kind of teenager?
Well, the teasers seem to indicate Amadeus Cho, except they released a whole bunch of teasers that if you take a look at the shadows, could be Thor Odin's son, could be Wolverine, could be the Beast. We're not sure which teaser now is the correct teaser.
Right.
From there, we'll move forward into DC comic news. And first up, there's still people trying to figure out on Newsarama, at least, just how loose DC's new loose continuity is. Some people are calling it continuity light. And according to co-publisher Jim Lee, quote, we're really asking the creators to put story and character first and really focus in on canon rather than continuity. This is an attempt to refocus the line, focus on story, and let the creators tell their stories without necessarily being confined by the restrictions of continuity, unquote. Some people are calling it the prismatic age because there's so many different things happening at the same time. There are books where Bruce Wayne is still Batman, books where Clark Kent still has secrets and still fully powered, stories where Batman is Jim Gordon, stories where Wonder Woman is trying to figure out what the fuck happened in my relationship. It's giving me a headache, frankly. I'm trying to figure out where the actual timeline is.
I just assume that those individual books with those major differences are like, that's another universe right there, just whatever.
That worries me, though, because that means there's 2 versions of the post-Flashpoint universe, then.
Sounds like you named off 3, maybe. I don't know.
It's really hard to figure out where to find a foothold, because, different books are telling different stories, but that also means that you lower your possibilities that people who are interested in the character are going to buy other books, because they have no idea if that character is going to be in the other books now.
Yeah.
So I think it's frustrating. However, remember the Green Lantern story, Lost Army? Several lanterns were apparently stuck in a far-off part of the universe and couldn't find any clues as to where they were. They didn't have a battery or any lanterns with them, so they were running low on juice, including Guy Gardner as the Christmas Lantern, if you recall. wearing both red and green rings. Well, thanks to issue 3, we found out where they are.
Where?
They're in another universe altogether.
Star Trek?
They're not in the multiverse. Here's the thing. They just encountered Relic, who was a villain from a recent Green Lantern story. Relic came from the prior universe, where people who were wielding the emotional spectrum, not via rings, but via other means, drained the emotional spectrum to the point where his entire universe collapsed. And because he was in his ship near the source wall, he was transformed, and he just kind of spurted into the new universe, or the current DC universe as it was born, all right?
Okay.
Now, the Lost Lanterns have encountered Relic pre-transformation. They are in the universe prior to the one where theirs came into existence. Which means somehow they are transported in both time and space backwards quite a ways. And this Relic doesn't recognize them at all, except that they wield the green part of the emotional spectrum.
Was that a good thing or a bad thing?
Probably a good thing, because when he met them in the current universe, he tried to destroy them. You know, after all, people wielding the emotional spectrum were destroying universes, so he thought maybe if he could destroy all the ring slingers, he would save the current universe.
Hmm.
He didn't really ask, he just started doing shit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So now they're trying to follow this guy around and create as little of a footprint in the timeline as possible. Further on in DC comic news, Wonder Woman officiated a gay wedding.
Yeah, I saw that.
Sensation Comics is a digital series written and drawn by Jason Badauer. And that series had Wonder Woman taking a break from stopping a war in Eastern Europe so she could officiate over a gay wedding between two women.
Well, she's from the Amazon, so...
Yeah,
Amazons,
I mean...
I should say.
She's also the goddess of war, so I guess that's technically proper. However, it creates a couple of questions for me, you know. I mean, A, when did DC start allowing gay marriage, since they've never really allowed it prior? And B, does this mean Batwoman finally has a shot at happiness?
I think it's because the characters she officiated over were not major names that they allowed it.
It's just weird. It still means that they don't have any major characters that are dealing with this at all. And they kind of skirted the issue since it didn't really happen in DC print either. It happened in DC Digital.
Huh.
It was really weird, though, how Clark Kent was there and talked to her and said, "I'm still amazed how you subdued that army without a single punch." And Wonder Woman came back with, quote, "Violence is the lowest form of communication. I'd let him have his say, then I had mine." Unquote. I've always known Wonder Woman to be the one to punch first out of the three major characters in DC.
Yeah.
You know, Batman will sit and think about it. Superman will try his best not to kill anybody. She's the one that would remove heads. I've never known her to negotiate. And last up in DC comic news, there is a writer named Brian Bucoletto. He's finishing up his writing gig on Detective Comics as of September's issue number 44. And he opened up a little bit because in Detective Comics, he actually repaired a long-term pair of detectives in Batman lore, and that is Harvey Bullock and Renee Montoya.
Oh, wow, damn. Haven't heard those names in a while.
Yeah, I haven't really heard those names since Flashpoint, but that's probably because I haven't been reading the book. It's nice to know they still exist.
I haven't heard them since the animated series, so...
Well, Renee Montoya, before the Flashpoint came down, she became the Question.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, DC announced that his partner and collaborator on the book, Francis Manapul, at Comic-Con, DC announced that Manapul will be creating a new Aquaman Earth 1 book and working with Jeff Johns on the Justice League. So, man, that's a nice pedigree of work. Detective Comics going to the Justice League. That's a guy that's definitely made his bones in the industry. From there, we'll go into general comic and convention news. We'll talk about stuff that happens at conventions as well as happens outside the umbrellas of Marvel and DC. The creator of Big Hero 6 has started a new series an original graphic novel called Camp Midnight. It was announced at the Image Expo last month. Camp Midnight tells the story of Sky, a girl whose parents are divorcing and she's sent away to camp for the summer. Because of a grievous error, Sky is sent to the wrong camp and ends up at Camp Midnight, a monster camp.
What?
Come on, we've heard more ridiculous premises for comic books.
And animes.
Yeah, this sounds more
And
like an
manga.
all-ages type item, though. I mean, it was done
Yeah.
by the creator of Big Hero 6, and half of that series was done as a joke to begin with. You know, I've heard worse. I mean, after all, I read a series where the only claim to fame it had was taking mutants and putting cybernetic parts on them. That's the story. It's true. That's
Cable?
not the only... no, Cyberforce. There's also a 12-page preview that's out of Andre Lima Arujo's Man Plus. It's a new cyberpunk thriller set in Portugal in the year 2042. You can find a full 12-page preview of a new cyberpunk comic out right now. There's going to be updates offering a new page on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. In other words, they're going to treat Man Plus like a webcomic as well as a print book.
Interesting.
You can we'll add a link so you can check out the first 12 pages if you want to at manpluscomic.com. Also, when it comes to continuing stories, there is a new book coming out called Heroes Vengeance. It's a prequel book to the new Heroes Reborn TV series coming out on NBC this fall. It's going to be priced at $3.99, and it's being done by Paul Pope. I actually watched a mini-series on YouTube I didn't know was out called Heroes Dark Matter. It's the story that kind of creates the impetus as to why the story of Heroes is continuing. It actually involves why somebody's looking for Noah Bennett, the horned-rimmed glasses man. Actually, it was much more interesting than I thought it was going to be. We also have a new book by Sam Humphries that is non-Marvel. He's done a creator-owned book with artist Tommy Patterson. It's a horror-fueled political comedy called Citizen Jack. It is about a politician who signed a deal with the devil to become president. The synopsis is, quote, "Every presidential candidate has a skeleton in their closet. Jack Northworthy worships the devil. A scandal-plagued small-town politician, Jack should in no way be president, but he's got a secret weapon. Marlin Spike, a malevolent demon of high ambitions. Together, they're running for president in an outrageous campaign that America will never forget," unquote. God, I know so many people that would hear that and just assume it's current American politics. And last up in general comics news, IO9 and Shannon Garrity has the 5 most ridiculously sexist superhero names in comic books.
Oh, this is going to be good.
It's interesting. Now, these are the names of characters that are inherently sexist, according to the writer, and some of them, I got to agree, that it's not helpful. First up is Shrinking Violet from the, what do you call it, the Legion of Superheroes? You guys heard of this character?
No.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No.
Quote, "Superheroines created in the 1960s tend to have one of 2 superpowers, shrinking or turning invisible. In other words, their power is to stay out of sight, just like real women in the Mad Men era. Shrinking is a potentially useful power. Look at the Ant-Man movie to see it used creatively. But it's hard to intimidate villains by being really, really short. It's even harder when you're stuck with a wimpy name to go with your wee stature. At least Ant-Man's female partner in Shrinkage, the Wasp, sounds like she could hurt you. Not so with Shrinking Violet of the Legion of Superheroes. Her name says it all. She can shrink. She's shy. Sometimes she wears purple and sometimes green because why not? Not the kind of branding that strikes fear into the hearts of evildoers. In some recent appearances, she's been renamed Atom Girl, which sounds cooler while keeping that retro Silver Age charm," unquote. I've never found Shrinking Violet interesting as a character, and I gotta admit, the name doesn't help at all. I do remember the second character on this list. I've read a few comics involving the Looker. That is the actual name of the character from DC Comics and Batman and the Outsiders. Looker. Quote, "Homely, glasses-wearing bank teller Emily Leah Briggs is transformed by rays from Halley's Comet, just roll with it, into a gorgeous, busty redhead with psionic powers. The obvious next step, become a superpowered supermodel. That's the backstory behind the DC heroine Looker, a member of the Outsiders, whose signature power is being hot. Looker is far from the only Superwoman whose name suggests sex appeal over strength. Others include Dream Girl, Beautiful Dreamer, and the villainous Knockout. At least in Looker's case, the name accurately describes her powers. It's not exactly the most progressive image of a powerful female character, but Looker has some fun with her situation, developing a cocky attitude to go with her super makeover. That said, Emily presenting her new body to her husband as a Christmas gift will never not be weird. P.S. Later she becomes a vampire because her story wasn't convoluted enough, unquote. Character number 3 I'm well familiar with, but I understand the argument behind the writer. And the character name that they brought up is She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Quote, superhero comics have a long, rich tradition of creating new female characters through the calculus of popular male character, but a lady. There are many ways of feminizing a male superhero's name. Girl, miss, lass, woman. Somehow slapping a she to the front seems the least dignified. It's the ultimate sign that the writers aren't even trying to sell this as a new character. Standing as an inspiration to all badly named superheroines, She-Hulk, who gained her powers via blood transfusion from her cousin Bruce Banner, overcame the disadvantage of what might be the most laughable name in comics to become one of Marvel's most entertaining characters. The similarly named She-Thing hasn't favored quite as well, because no one wants to see the thing with boobs in the first place. But she's had some good runs as a backup member of the Fantastic Four. She-Thing sometimes fights under the name Miss Marvel, like about half the women in the Marvel Universe, but She-Hulk wears her goofy name with pride. We're still waiting for the day a man gets a blood transfusion from She-Hulk and becomes the incredible She-Hulk Man, unquote. Yeah, as much as I'm a fan of the She-Hulk, I gotta admit, the name is slightly ridiculous. Although I think it's one of those things where the character has overcome the name.
Yeah, she's got a lot of character personality behind it. It trumps that.
Yeah. Now, the next character I had actually not heard of before, but it's a DC character. And yeah, I really understand why people would find this sexist and offensive. The name of the character? Lady Cop.
Wow, that sounds like a hooker name.
Yeah, quote, we've rhapsodized before on the wonders of Lady Cop, a DC heroine who's a cop. And a lady. And that's it. In fact, there were 2 Lady Cops, one in the 1940s and one in the 1970s. In both cases, her name suggests that the very idea of a female police officer is wild enough to drive a comic book. Even though both Lady Cops belong to fictional police forces that include other Lady Cops. So presumably, no one was actually that freaked out by a cop being a lady. If Lady Cop had been successful, perhaps she could have inspired spin-offs like Judge Woman, Post Office Counterlass, and eventually She-Blogger. In lieu of a rich legacy, we'll have to console ourselves with this scene of the 1970s Lady Cop hunting down her wiliest foe, venereal disease, unquote.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, that's high on lame.
Wow.
Really high on lame. The last one on this list of the 5 most sexist superhero names, I am vaguely aware of, didn't really read, and I didn't spot the joke until this lady pointed it out. The name of the character is the Crimson Curse.
Oh,
it's a
Lord.
It's a woman. Quote, maybe it was an innocent mistake on Marvel's part. When Erica Harkness, daughter of the sorceress who trained the Scarlet Witch, became a witchy superhero herself, she needed a name that suggested both her powers and her connection to the Scarlet Witch. Something red. Something redolent of witchcraft and spells. Of course, the Crimson Curse. There's no way readers could look at that name and think of anything but a mighty sorceress whose elemental powers include controlling the tides and... Nah, come on, this had to be deliberate, and somebody at Marvel needs to send her to fight Donald Trump ASAP, unquote. That really is a terrible name when you take it out of context. A woman running around is the Crimson Curse. Oh. I find that one groan-worthy, and I like to think of myself as fairly progressive. From there, we'll bounce into anime and Japan news. Have you guys seen Ladybeard?
Huh?
No.
Ladybeard is a professional wrestler and cosplayer in Japan. I don't know what country he hails from. His name is Brian something. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Brian posted the images of Ladybeard running around Comiket. And Ladybeard has been creating some curious sexual confusion when it comes to Comiket. I will send you guys the link so you can take a look at all the photos at once because they are just too glorious to share one by one. Take a look at this and what costume he wore at Comiket.
Can't be worse than Man-Fae.
No, actually, it's much better than Man-Fae. He has the legs to pull it off.
Wow.
Lady Beard dressed up at Comiket as Chun-Li. And this isn't a twink. This isn't some feminized, rail skin guy. This is a rather muscular individual dressing up as Chun-Li, and I gotta admit, he's making it work for himself. Maybe it's because he's just having fun, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just looks like he's enjoying himself. And the poses he put together, he looks like a guy who's played the game more than a bit. That last picture of him doing the split kick is rather impressive, actually.
The mascara is a bit disturbing.
A little. But he went all in on it, you know?
Yep.
He didn't skimp on anything. It's a nice costume, he wore it well. And he has the poses of Chun-Li pretty well down.
The split kick, the split kick with his tights splitting, that's a little gratuitous there. Yeah.
I think he purposefully split them. I spent a little time thinking about that, probably more than I should, but I think he did that so he could go to the bathroom without removing half the costume.
Yeah, even still.
So I gotta give him credit. He did well. It's just a fan being a fan. And we actually have a small YouTube trailer we have a PV video of Phantasy Star 2 Online, the anime.
Huh.
Okay.
I watched it a little bit. It's kind of unfortunate because it really didn't tell me anything about the storyline. It had some interesting images, but maybe it's because I've never played the second Phantasy Star Online. I'm having a little trouble picking out what is in this thing. I sent the video. 15th anniversary of PlayStation Online. Now, the key animations look pretty good. The central frames where animators take their cues from when it comes to design. Looks like it's fairly produced, at least. Although I've noticed that there's a significant drop in the broadcast version of animes versus their DVD and Blu-ray releases. So I'm going to guess that this isn't an inherently sci-fi anime. It looks like it's going to be one of those ones where kids dive into VR. Why is she staring at him in the bathroom?
Damned if I know.
Because all these students look way too typical to be on a space station.
Yeah, it's got to be kids actually playing the game, because there's no school setting in PSO2.
Yeah, ever since the light novels on Sword Art Online came out, that's turned into almost a standard version of storytelling for a lot of sci-fi animes. I don't know, I'm kind of mixed on that PV. There's some interesting aspects to it, but there's other things I don't really care about.
It's like, it didn't really say anything.
It didn't tell us a damn thing.
It announced all their voice actors, basically.
Yeah, Taiwan actually had a little bit of news. There is actually a woman that is driving people to Taiwan to check out the McDonald's goddess.
Oh, yes. The McGoddess.
I think I've seen an article on this.
Wei Han-shu has become an internet sensation after a few pictures of her working made it online. Some of it appears to be her own Twitter, and a lot more seem to be just fans taking pictures of her. She
is a professional model as well.
Yeah, okay. She's somewhat cute and everything. It wouldn't drive me to buy a McChicken at all, though. Or whatever they're serving in Taiwan. Why is a professional model working in McDonald's anyway? Is work that bad?
Possibly. Then again, I don't know. Maybe McDonald's pays better than it does here.
Well, apparently McDonald's restaurants in Taiwan are known for employing attractive women to work in the shops and encourage them to dress up. They definitely don't do that at U.S. McDonald's.
No. They don't get paid enough to do that.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the series of pictures that was put out by the Kill la Kill character designer Sushio?
No.
Now, it has to do with Kill la Kill, that weird series that had a lot of 70s throwback style animations and character designs.
Right.
Sushio actually put up a series of pictures telling the story of the birth and early life prior to the anime of one of the supporting characters, Makan Shokomako. It was actually it was an interesting group of pictures. I sent you the link so you could take a look at all of them. It's literally the story of how this girl who turns into the best friend of one of the main characters was born and went through life in the poor slums in the city she was born into. It's oddly endearing to see her grow up from a baby to a toddler. And I like the one where she figures out that some of her younger clothes don't fit, so she puts them on the dog. Looks like she has a bizarre pug. I don't know what the deal is with her putting leaves in the pipe between a power pole and the ground. I'm not quite sure what that signifies.
Boredom.
You see, there's the image of her getting a younger brother. And every one that involves her around a group of girls, she's always doing something unusual while the other girls are playing. You know, it's hard to describe these scene by scene, but it is the idea of the character growing up in life. There she is running afoul of the tennis club captain again. And the last 4 or 5 images have to do with how she met the main character of the series, Ryuko. And her pointing to an empty desk that changed her life. It's interesting. You wouldn't think a series like Kill la Kill could tell a touching story. You managed to do it without words.
Those are some of the best stories.
Yeah, if only politics could be done like that. Last up in anime and Japan news, there's a company called Super Groupie that makes women's clothing.
Mm-hmm.
They've decided to make a lingerie line based around the color schemes of the plug suits from Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh boy.
I shit you not, man. It's not near as blatant as Peach John and the Sailor Moon underwear they made. It's just a bunch of frilly lingerie that has to do with the color schemes from the plug suits of the anime. And if you know the series, you know which one is for Rei, which one's for Asuka, and which one's for, I think her name is Mari.
Mari, yeah.
The fact that I know that disturbs me a little bit. There's nothing really signifying that it's connected to the anime other than the colors and the ads, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
However, I wonder if this is
nothing to do with the actual plug suit.
Yeah. I wonder if this is something else I'll see people wearing at random on the Anime Expo dealers hall floor again. Hey, that surprised me as much as anything. All right, moving forward, we're into the nerd interest news. We talked about the nerdy projects that aren't entertainment-based, but being geeks, sometimes technology has a charm all of its own. However, this is not charming. There are several cities right now across the U.S. that are playing around with what they call the cloud tax. Want to guess what that's in regards to?
Taxing the cloud service?
Services. They're talking about adding taxes to services that don't currently have taxes, like Hulu, Netflix, Spotify, things like that.
Go to hell.
Yeah. Right now, Chicago is the biggest player, where they're playing around with a 7% tax on cloud computing services and streaming music and video. Other state governments like Tennessee and Idaho are experimenting with them as well. The reason for that is because usually the taxes for entertainment on video come in the form of DVDs and Blu-rays. But that industry has fallen from a high of $20.2 billion in sales from a decade ago to around $10 billion today. So right now, a lot of services who are used to getting revenue in certain formats are looking for other ways to plug up that loss of revenue. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that's not entirely surprising. You know, our entertainment in different formats, when it's new, it doesn't have a tax associated for it. When people figure out how to monetize it, not long afterwards, someone figures out how to put a fee on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the unfortunate reality is that extra fee isn't absorbed by the company. It's usually passed on in the form of some kind of surcharge to the customer. So we could be looking at a whole new group of costs for our streaming services in the near future, at least in this country. Now, when it comes to nerd interest, we've talked before about Katie Goldman. Okay? She is a young girl who had an interest in sci-fi. She really liked Star Wars, but she got bullied in school for it. So the 501st Legion, who is a fan group of Star Wars stormtroopers, put together a child-sized group of stormtrooper armor and gave it to her. Mm-hmm. Where we picked up on that story is because she outgrew the armor, but there was a other young girl named Allison who was bullied and attacked for liking Star Wars and Spider-Man. The 501 and Katie Goldman presented her with Katie's armor, which she had outgrown. So Allison wore it, she outgrew it. This is a story about a third young girl named Layla who was also being teased at school, this time in Virginia, for wearing an R2-D2 jacket and a Guardians of the Galaxy t-shirt. You know, logical shit.
I see nothing wrong with this.
Okay. She was getting bullied. The 501st Legion and their leader, Garrison Tyrannus, issued her the young girl stormtrooper armor that had been worn by two other girls. But there's a twist on this story. Because as it turns out, the 501st was in Virginia for an entirely different reason than to present this armor, but they made a side trip to do it. After they presented Layla with the armor, they whisked her away to a concert where the 501st Legion had a slight performance in. They were participating on stage in this concert. So she got to go as part of the experience.
Nice.
It doesn't end there because who was performing the concert was also an important detail, and she got to meet the guy. She is now on a first-name basis with Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh, sweet.
Yep.
Lucky girl.
Yep. There's actually a photo of the two of them together, and it's really adorable. It looks like he took time out of a... Actually, if it's before a concert, there probably wasn't even a signature session. He probably made a little bit of time just to sign some stuff for people who were willing to buy, and then made a couple more minutes to hang out with this girl that the 501st brought with them. I sent you guys the image of Al and Layla to take a look. It's cute.
Yep.
The man doesn't age. What does he sleep in?
What does he eat?
I don't know. We may be in the midst of a Hyperloop build-off of all things.
Wait, what?
The Hyperloop is I don't want to say theoretical, but it is a conceived transportation system where instead of train tracks, a system of cars is put together on a pneumatic tube. And they use the vacuum of the pneumatic tube to shoot it at high speeds between locations. Elon Musk, the guy who owns Tesla, the one who sold PayPal to a different company to make his billions in the first place, he has plans for a high-speed Hyperloop transit system. 2 years ago, he got the plans. He said he never intended on building it. As of this past spring, he's changed his mind. On top of that, there are now, in between him and another independent group, there's now two different groups planning on building Hyperloop tracks in the next year. It's not a competition. You know, Elon Musk Group has bought a 2 square mile acre in California, or 2 square acre area in California to build a test Hyperloop in an oval track so they can put together a prototype. But we may have some next generation transportation coming in the near future at this rate. When I say near future, obviously I mean in the next decade. But still, it's
what? When you're describing the technology, kind of remind me of actually an episode of Mythbusters that they did, where they actually did break a world record.
Well, Hyperloops are not necessarily new technology; they're a refinement of technology. You know, there were pneumatic train systems in New York. That was the first subway system. Okay. This ups the power and turns it into a high-speed, long-distance rail system. You know, this is basically the next step from high-speed rail. Which would be kind of ironic considering how the last two governors of California were so gung-ho about a high-speed rail system. Now someone's working on the next great thing. There's also been a recent MRI study to figure out what region of the brain allows us to get songs stuck in our head. This phenomenon where you have that one piece of music you cannot remove from your head unless you have another piece of music that's almost as annoying or catchy. It's called involuntary musical imagery, or in layman's terms, it's called earworm. People with certain personality traits like neuroticism can experience it more so than others. Do you know what neuroticism is?
Yeah.
I've heard the term. I don't actually know what it means.
Neuroticism is where you have certain personality traits that makes it easier for you to hear imaginary sounds, more or less. Not necessarily hearing voices telling you to strangle the family dog or anything like that, but just you're more able to have visual imaginary, or not visual, strong
auditory
virtual imaginary sounds. You know, it's easier for you to just kind of imagine sounds rather than experience them.
Crap.
What they found, though, is that the region of the brain that allows people to imagine sounds, for those who have involuntary musical imagery or strong cases of, that region of the brain is thicker than in other people. The study enrolled 44 healthy male and female participants in age from 25 to 70. None of the volunteers had a history of neurological damage or hearing loss, and none were expert musicians. So it turns out if you have a piece of music stuck in your head very easily, you may have a thicker region of your brain than the average person. It's nice to know I'm not crazy,
Which
but
apparently isn't a good thing.
it can be a great thing if there's a piece of music that just makes you feel happy. It can be a horrible thing if all you can do is imagine Justin Bieber singing Baby Baby all goddamn day. Then suicide might be an option. There is a laboratory that was able to send an invisible magnetic field from point to point via wormhole.
Huh?
There was a study at the Autonomous University of Barcelona in Spain. According to the study's co-author, Jordi Prat Camps, quote, "This device can transmit the magnetic field from one point in space to another point through a path that is magnetically invisible. From a magnetic point of view, the device acts like a wormhole, as if the magnetic field was transferred through an extra special dimension." Unquote. So they created a device that allowed them to transmit a magnetic field from one point in space to another via no pathway. It's a point-to-point transmission.
So we're one step closer to doing transporters?
No, we're one point closer to potentially being able to control energy via wormholes.
Especially electricity, being given the close ties between magnetism and that.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the application of this could be. If they could transmit more than magnetic fields, if they can transmit energy, then that means something that seems fantastic, like a solar farm on the moon, would actually be a very viable thing all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the type of energy you could get when you're not filtering solar rays through the atmosphere, or through a strong atmosphere even. That could be an incredible power point.
Or how
Then again, it could also
satellite in orbit.
Yeah,
The
it could
sole
also
purpose
be
is to collect energy.
It could also be the story of how we destroyed the moon. Now, here is something I never thought I would hear about. There's a former salt mine in Romania.
Uh-huh.
It's been transformed into an amusement park.
Huh?
Not only has it been transformed into an amusement park, it is a Transylvanian amusement park. This section of Romania was formerly known as Transylvania.
Huh.
In 1992, as a salt mine, it was called the Salina Turda. It was fully operational for centuries. In 1932, it was bought out by a company and used to store cheeses, okay? This story couldn't get much weirder. Then in 1992, it was converted into a subterranean amusement park complete with fairground classics like a mini golf, bowling, a Ferris wheel, a carousel, and even the underground lake that developed in this salt mine has paddle boats on it and rowboats for people to enjoy. This thing is 120 meters inside the ground. I'll send you guys
The only
the
thing
link.
you can provide is sunlight.
No, it's well lit, though. They got plenty of lights everywhere. Take a look. I sent you the link to the page. It is oddly gorgeous.
Yeah, wow.
You know, never mind the fact that you're 120 meters underground. I don't know what depth that is, but I want to say it's like a couple football fields straight down.
I'm looking at the Ferris wheel. I'm starting to remind of those.
It looks like an erector set.
Yeah, something like that.
But it's
Some of the wall patterns are kind of neat.
I don't know.
Good
There's
lord.
something slightly creepy about this, but at the same time, very calming. It's a strange convergence of emotions I feel looking at these images.
I'm not sure how I would feel if I was actually there in person.
I would be very curious to
Apparently,
take
it's
a
supposed
paddle.
to be Very good for your breathing health.
I kind of want to take one of the rowboats out. Although there'd be that part of me that's just entranced on how calm it is, but at the same time I'd be wondering if there's like some kind of fish man underneath that water. It's Transylvania after all. Now I've heard of this stuff, but I've never actually seen it. Have you heard of hydrophobic sand?
Hydrophobic
Sand that doesn't mix with water, if I remember correctly.
Sort of. It's sand that has its own kind of protection against the water, so it never actually becomes damp, even after being immersed in water. It's very weird stuff. There are videos online that show you how to make it, but I've never actually seen it before. There was somebody who pulled a video off the BBC Two of hydrophobic sand. It turns in this weird silvery substance once it's pulled in water, and as soon as you spoon it out, it goes from clumpy to sand again in an instant. There is no transformation time. And it's a short video. As much as it doesn't tell you anything, I found it entrancing to watch. I sent it. Cheesy music, okay. Now you see him pour it into sand, and it turns into this weird silvery goop in there.
I think it's not. I think it's this fraction of light because it's holding on to the air.
Well, why would light reflection have to do with this? It's not an illusion. It's literally sand that just doesn't get wet.
Yeah, but it's how can I describe this? The sand is holding on to, I guess, oxygen, which is preventing it from getting wet, and that oxygen is basically causing an air bubble. In the way it's all set with the sand and the air acting as a lens, it appears so because it's this reflecting the light.
I'm sorry, a second video came up and I was staring at it. There's got to be something else at play here, though, that I just don't understand, because how it seems to go from different forms of solids from one state to another, and the only difference being the water, I don't understand, but it's very interesting to me.
Yeah, watching them actually spread water into the sand is quite unique.
Yeah. Now, have you ever heard of... There are rare people out there that have orgasms for no reason. You know, there's no arousal, no physical stimuli, no foreplay, no buildups, no control. Just, going about your day, and all of a sudden, it happens. It turns out that that's called an orgasmic seizure. It's a rare and unusual condition. It's not fun by any means, okay? It's people with a rare version of epilepsy. The thing is, their epileptic seizure starts with an orgasm.
Damn.
Yeah, there are a few people who've reported with with this unusual orgasmic seizure that they do enjoy their seizures, but the majority seem to feel that the lack of control over where or when they orgasm is pretty unpleasant, embarrassing, or frightening.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Now, I can kind of understand why that happens, because epilepsy, my understanding of it is the brain just goes haywire. Nothing is under control other than possibly the autonomous functions, and even those can get really wonky under epilepsy. And there's probably a few people that when that happens, their pleasure center lights up like a Christmas tree. But could you imagine trying to explain to a doctor who's trying to help you out, okay, thank you very much, everything's straightening out, I'm breathing much better, and can you get me a wet nap? I think I would walk around in Depends just because. Also this week, this really struck a nerve with me, and this is another case where I wish V was here. Archaeologists may have found an actual warrior princess.
Really?
Yeah, archaeologists were in Kazakhstan. They found the remains of a female warrior who lived sometime between the 11th century BC and the 4th century AD. They identified the remains as a female, given the size and shape of the skull. And other warrior women graves have been found in the eastern steppe, but this is the first one that's been found in Kazakhstan. And this woman, whoever she was found buried with a dagger and a sword. And I don't mean impaled with it. I mean she was actually buried with these things in a ceremonial fashion. The current hypothesis is that she may have been a person of importance living in the Kangui state, and she's thought to have led a group of nomads who lived somewhere in the area of modern Kazakhstan. There was a large sword that was laid next to her left hand, and a dagger was positioned near her right hand.
Interesting.
She was also buried with ancient arrows and finely crafted pots. It sounds like she was a woman who had some level of wealth back then. I'm almost flabbergasted because there's a lot I'd like to know about whomever this was. Last up in nerd interest news, Rob Bricken is one of those guys in IO9 who comes up with lists of interesting or useless things in Dungeons & Dragons, and he's decided to do it again.
Oh, fun.
He put together a list of what he calls the 20 most useless Dungeons & Dragons spells ever.
Okay.
Are we curious?
Sure.
Okay, the first one on this list is Banish Dazzle. Quote, once this spell was cast, the target could see clearly through blinding sunlight and heat shimmer. Reflected sunlight from a mirror had no effect on the target, and they were immune from being blinded by light spells. So, basically, sunglasses, unquote. I don't know if I call that useless necessarily. It could be frustrating, though.
Well, it depends on what level it was.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Number 2, Basket Trick.
Basket trick.
Yeah, quote, in D&D, there's a reasonably useful skill called Blink, which allows wizards to basically pop briefly over to the astral plane, gives them a chance to move around, effectively teleporting a short distance, and confusing or escaping foes. Basket Trick is Blink, except you don't get to choose where you move, but instead, pop back into the physical in a random nearby basket. Not only is this a basket-specific teleport spell, you don't even get to pick the basket, unquote.
Well, to be fair, you didn't get to pick where you moved with Blink either.
Yeah, I think what he was describing is more like ethereal jaunt as opposed to blink.
Or dimensional door.
Yeah, dimension door too.
How about Bowgentle's Fleeting Journey?
Huh?
Quote, another insane variation of the teleportation spell. Bowgentle's specific version of teleporting, one being to a known location for a minute, and then immediately brought them back to their place of origin. It's the 60-second teleport. Now, you may be thinking that this could be useful for sending a brief message to people if nothing else, but the distance for this spell was 60 feet, and you had to be in visible eyesight of the wizard. You could run 20 yards and be back again in 2 minutes, unquote.
Yeah.
Well, if you're really athletic, you could do that in less than 2 minutes. I mean, you know, athletes do a 40-yard dash in 4 seconds. Are you familiar with Chastise?
No.
Quote, need to browbeat someone but don't have the time to say the actual words? Then cast Chastise. Although you do have to cast the spell by saying the words, so I'm not sure how much time it really saves. For bonus silliness, the spell only worked on people who offended the spellcaster, making it spectacularly situation-specific, unquote.
It sounds like it's a spell made for people who couldn't roleplay that stuff.
You can only chastise someone who offended you? Wow.
Well, that is kind of what chewing somebody out, chastising is.
But you cast a spell for it instead of just chastising them.
Right.
Wow.
I don't know what... I'm curious what the spell's effect is.
I don't know. Item number 5 is Converse with Sea Creatures. Quote, a.k.a. the Aquaman Special. Unless you were role-playing in an underwater setting, which was not impossible, but very unlikely, this spell is as useless as Aquaman himself, unquote. Well, Aquaman didn't exactly speak to fish. He just pushed them. Item number 6, Corpse Light. Quote, this made corpses glow. That's it. Perhaps it would be helpful in the dark, but it wouldn't be nearly as helpful as a simple light spell, which didn't require a nearby dead person as a conduit. Even then, I'm trying to think of how often anyone would need to turn a corpse into a rotting nightlight, but I'm coming up empty, unquote. I gotta agree. I'd rather have light.
Yep.
Item number 7 I wasn't familiar with before. Decastave.
Yeah, I know this one.
He sounds like the retarded cousin of Devastator. Okay, Decastave. Quote, this spell transformed a small piece of wood into a 10-foot-long battle staff that wizards could wield. It sounds kind of useful, until you remember how long a 10-foot stick would be. For perspective, 10 feet high is the length of the shortest possible pole vaulting pole. Now imagine trying to fight someone with a pole vaulting pole, in a dungeon, where the length of the hallways are almost always exactly 10 feet wide, unquote.
Decastave. Okay, that makes sense.
Depth Warning. Depth Warning is an actual spell.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, exactly as it says on the tin, it lets you know when your depth changes. About the only time I can think of this spell being more useful than just paying attention to your surrounding is when you're somehow in a submarine without a window. And I have yet to do this in a D&D game, unquote.
D20 Modern.
Someone tells me you wouldn't find this spell in a D20 Modern. You would find a window. Item number 9, Detect Undead. Quote, if there are undead near enough to you to be discovered by this spell, I guarantee they've already made their presence known, unquote.
That's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I find it quite useful if you're dealing with wraiths and ghosts and stuff.
I've never had to use it.
Jesse ran a campaign.
No. Item number 10, Disguise Undead. Quote, got a corpse? Of course you do. You're playing Dungeons & Dragons. Need him to look like he's not a corpse? Then Disguise Undead is a spell for you. The only reason this spell would be worthwhile is if it was titled Bernie's Adventurous Weekend, unquote.
No, Jameis made use of that spell with his necromancer before I killed him.
We? No, you.
I said Jameis.
Must not have been that useful if you killed him.
Before you killed him, not we killed him.
Oh, did I use the wrong pronoun?
I
Yes.
don't think so. You said I, as far as I know.
Oh, I thought you said we. I was like, no.
How about, let me see, item number 11 on the spell, the most 20 useless D&D spells according to IO9 and Rob Brecken, Guise of the Yak Man.
Huh?
Never heard of this one.
I would have to look it up because all it says in the explanation is, quote, self-explanatory, unquote.
I
have to agree with them there.
Item number 12, Hold Portal. Quote, a spell that holds a door, gate, or window shut as if it was locked. You know what it also does? A lock. And unlike Hold Portal, a lock can actually hold your portal for more than a minute per level of the spellcaster, unquote.
I highly disagree with this one.
Yeah,
it
me
is
too.
Very useful.
It is. It makes that it makes it more difficult to break it down. It makes it more difficult to pick. It makes that lock more difficult to pick, and the door more difficult to break down.
Yeah, I'm just reading the list.
Believe it or not, there are doors without locks that sometimes you want to stay closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Item number 13, Otto's Irresistible Dance.
Pretty much
Quote,
just as good as Sasha's Irresistible Laughter.
Quote, in the mood for some entertainment? Then cast this, which as its title suggests, forces its target to dance uncontrollably to the exclusion of all else. In terms of incapacitating an opponent, it's undeniably goofy, but it could be useful, until you learn it's an 8th level spell, which at that point, wizards are actually traveling through dimensions, creating giant clouds of fire, bending entire groups of monsters to his or her will, and driving people insane. Making someone do a little jig doesn't sound that useful now, does it? Unquote.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, it does not allow for a saving throw, however. And I do remember at one point somebody had that and shoved a character off a boat and cast it on him. He died. Kind of hard to swim while you're dancing.
True. Item number 14, Quincy's Enchanting Gourmet. Quote, a spell that doesn't just cook a grand meal, but also cleans up the kitchen afterwards. Kitchen not included. If you ever play a session of D&D where you need to clean up a kitchen, I feel very sorry for you, unquote.
Yeah, a lot of these spells I have a feeling are more for the roleplay aspect.
Not Shillelagh.
Oh,
Shillelagh, one of the prime druid spells.
Quote, this druid spell transforms a stick or club into a quarterstaff, which is to say a stick that does slightly more damage than the original stick. If you're carrying a stick that you plan on turning into a staff at some point, just buy the stupid quarterstaff, unquote.
Well, in Pathfinder and 5th edition, it actually makes it magical and does like a D8 instead.
Well, he's talking about D&D, though.
Well, you're probably talking like 3.5 or 4th. Which is
it existed in 2nd edition. I think that might be what he's thinking of, because 3.5, I think it even still made it magical, or at least allowed you to harm creatures that to bypass their magical damage reduction.
Well, item number 16 is Snillock's Snowball. Quote, one snowball, a single solitary snowball that at least hits its target no matter what, with snow. Somehow this spell did damage to things other than fire creatures, but still, it's basically a very embarrassing version of Magic Missile, unquote.
Bobby Drake could use this at will.
And yet, they didn't mention Snillock's Cream Pie.
Maybe he found it more useful when he was hungry. He did mention Spendelard's Chaser. You recognize that one?
Nope.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. Quote, a spell that mainly cured hangovers and drug withdrawal symptoms. While this would be an unbelievably useful spell in real life, why would any D&D player choose to fill up a spell slot with this thing when telling the game master, my character sleeps in for another couple of hours would have the same effect, unquote?
No dwarf has ever learned this spell.
Because sometimes you don't have the option of sleeping in for another couple of hours.
Well, he also listed as item number 18, the Ship of Fools. Quote, this is basically the same as a confusion spell, but only for sailors. It makes an entire crew basically forget how to sail all at once. Like so many of these spells, why would you take the ludicrously specific version of an original spell? Why not have the option to confuse people on and off ships, unquote?
Well, I'd have to look at the area of effect, but if it literally affects an entire ship, one confusion spell will not hit that.
Yep.
Tensor's Floating Disc.
There are so many uses for that. What the hell?
Yeah.
Quote, need your hands free? Then summon Tensor's Floating Disc, a medium-sized bowl of force that can carry loads for you while floating behind the caster. Or, you could spend a couple of gold pieces and get a goddamn backpack, unquote.
You can use this to go
or use your goddamn
hostile terrain.
And, throw some more loot on the Tensor's Floating Disc because you reached your max encumbrance. Or, I don't know. I'm still a huge fan of high-level wizards using the prismatic sphere and just casting it on the Tensor's Floating Disc and just riding it into people. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Well, last up on this list is Waterbane. Quote, a spell that kept wizards from getting wet, even when they enter a body of water. For the life of me, I can't find any table that indicates there has ever been some kind of penalty for being wet in any edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Meaning, apparently, this spell exists solely for the comfort of your imaginary character. A snowball spell would be significantly more useful, unquote. I had not heard of Waterbane prior.
Neither have I.
Nor had I. I can, however, depending on the campaign and GM, I know that some people get really anal about their survival skills and so forth. Waterbane, when you're traveling around in Arctic or tundra situation, I could see that being pretty useful. Monsoon or something like that. Yeah. Who knows?
Hit a mermaid with it.
That's actually really smart.
Okay, last up we got our What the Fuck corner. We talk about the stories across the internet that just really make us question human beings and their survivability. First up, this is actually just added as of about an hour ago. There's Boston police have arrested 2 Pokemon players after an apparent gun threat at the World Championships.
What?
There were 2 men who drove from Iowa to Boston for the Pokemon World Championships for the trading card game. And they may have threatened violence. They posted an image on Twitter, which was not the most intelligent thing to do. from the account of James Austin Stumbo, okay? And I'll send you guys the image so you can take a look at it, because it is just really bizarre that you would post this online. It says, quote, Kevin Norton and I are ready for World's Boston, here we come, unquote. It's the back of a white four-door, and on the back is an extended barrel shotgun and an AR-14.
Wow.
With their National Rifle Association sticker on the bumper.
I did notice that very obviously. Now, they were arrested because people alerted the authorities of the local, Pokemon World Championships of an apparent gun threat. And when they arrested him, the police did find the AR-15, the rifle, 2 cell phones, a tablet, a laptop, a knife, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition that looked like both rifle ammo and shotgun ammo. Okay, now, a couple things. One, the image they put out wasn't a specific threat. You gotta be very clear about that. Okay? However, I do have to question why, if you're going to the Pokemon World Championship and you're just going to enjoy the matches, would you ever bring this kind of shit?
Yeah.
And it's not like they brought a couple of guns to take to a firing range while they were relaxing. They brought 2 weapons that were definitely meant to cause maximum damage to something. The AR-15 has a banana clip. That shotgun, if you notice the strap for it, has a bandolier on it. And it looks like it could hold about 15 extra shells.
Yeah. I would not feel comfortable knowing that 2 individuals were driving around with this in their trunk.
Me neither.
Heading to a overpopulated event. Common sense, guys.
Yeah, and let alone, this is Boston, okay? This is where a marathon was bombed by 2 idiots. So here come 2 more idiots, making it very clear they've got guns. They're bringing him to a trading card game, or a trading card game championship. There's not many things they could be doing with these things.
Yeah.
The options are limited. And this is one of those things that sets off that part of my mind that is controlled by my thoughts of my needs for gun control. Not abolishment of guns, but these are the types of things that are very specifically designed for one purpose. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's an assault rifle with a long clip and a long barrel shotgun that has a bandolier strapped to it. There's not many things you could use this for.
Hunting. Totally use it for hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
the automatic rifle.
This is also the kind of thing that drives me nuts when you have people who don't want gun control, but say the police should not be using military-style gear. Well, if people are allowed to carry this shit legally, you can't blame the police for wanting to be better armed than the populace.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like you've got one of those situations where it's like nuclear talks. Everybody needs to scale down at the same time, otherwise everyone's just going to say, well, you do it first.
And then it becomes a game of chicken.
Pretty much. And it's usually one where the rednecks win somehow. Now, when it comes to what the fuck, we often have video game glitch videos.
Mm-hmm.
And, lately, ever since it came out, Batman Arkham Knight has not disappointed in this respect. However, this time, it's not Batman that screwed it up. Thanks to DLC, it's the Batgirl that's messing up with physics.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I sent the video. Okay, so there
Robin.
you see Batgirl kicking some ass. Oh, no, that is Robin, right.
As Robin.
Yeah.
Well, Batgirl is with him.
Yeah, she's in the room. Yeah, there's still a couple bad guys. He does the team-up attack. She puts him down and through the floor.
Oh!
You see that body folded up and jiggling like that?
Dude, his head is like off his body.
Yeah,
like
no,
he's doing the
you
chicken
weren't
dance.
exaggerating when you said through the floor.
Yeah. His arms are traveling.
Oh, that just looks wrong.
The sound of that body trying to pull itself together.
The fact that the face is sitting there with its tongue sticking out.
I know.
Bouncing around.
And that wild flap like it's one of those wacky waving inflatable tube toys.
It's managed to put itself in a pile with one of the other guys.
The mask isn't helping either. But the thing that makes this video truly epic is that it managed to do one thing that a lot of people who end up in this situation didn't do.
sit down and watch it?
Not watch it necessarily. Just wait. When the player gets bored, it tries a different filter. Oh, look, it happened to somebody
There's
else.
Another body.
Apparently, this is a real... Batgirl needs to watch her strength. Maybe she's taking too much of Bane's venom again. That one stopped wiggling. The first one hasn't, though. Oh, there's
Whoa!
Detective Vision.
Whoa!
Look at what she did. Okay, so now we know why Mr. Fantastic is not the Fantastic Four comic anymore.
Oh my god, it's like human centipede levels of freak!
Look what she did to the spinal column there. Those 3 vertebrae are just destroyed. Oh, I know what happened. Plastic Man was undercover. That's horrible.
Oh, that's nightmare fuel right there. Shit.
Detective mode just makes it so much better.
Yeah, what you need to do is have the character turn to Robin and just say, okay, we're never telling Bruce about this. Ever. I was almost done with the Arkham Knight glitches, but that one was truly great. Unfortunately, in our What the Fuck corner, we also have some negative news when it comes to the Batman. There is a Maryland man, Lenny Robinson. He was known as the Lamborghini Batman. Out in Maryland, he would either drive a Lamborghini or he would have a recreated version of the 66 Batmobile. He would dress up head to toe in Nolan-style Batman costumes, and he would go to hospitals and entertain kids. Early this week, he was killed in a car crash along I-70 in Maryland. He was only 51 years old. He had just come back from a car show in West Virginia. It's unknown at the time of the reports which car he was in, the Lamborghini or the 66 Batmobile. According to one family, he actually met them by coincidence when he stopped at a gas station to fuel up. Took some pictures with the kids, gave them a couple Batman-related items. You know, he was still being a very generous and nice person by all reports. He left first. The family loaded into the minivan. They came up to him later at I-70 and they pulled over to help because he was apparently out of his car and checking on something that was wrong with his vehicle. Mm-hmm. And without warning, his car was rear-ended. And he was still looking. He was still looking at the back of it.
Report that, no, he was looking into the front.
Oh, that's right. He was looking at the front.
He was
got
experiencing
punted.
engine troubles, and he had not managed to pull his car completely out of the fast lane. So, I guess the other driver didn't notice in time, ended up slamming into the back of the car, which of course then slammed into him.
I wonder what's going on with Mr. Robinson's son. Occasionally his son would dress up as Robin and go with him to the hospitals. It's just a sad story of a guy who actually did well for himself, had the money to do something nice for other people, and actually did it. So, it's a sad story. Speaking of sad stories, you guys have heard about the Ashley Madison hack, right?
The what? Oh.
Ashley Madison is a website that was started in Canada that boasts, I think, over 5 million subscribers. The entire premise of the website is that you should go there to have an affair. They actually have commercials in Canada where people are singing, "I'm looking for somebody other than my wife." It's creepy as fuck, okay?
Wow.
Yeah. Hackers got into the accounts of a lot of their users. I think it was over 500,000. I don't remember the exact number. Actually, I think it was millions of people. And they threatened to dump it online. Well, the hackers follow through with it, so people have been poking through the information that's been posted. Turns out there's, White House emails that have been attached to Ashley Madison accounts. There have been London Parliament emails attached to it. There have been military accounts attached to it. Although one that got a lot of tongues waggling was it turns out that a man named Josh Duggar has 2 accounts. You guys recognize that name at all?
No.
He's been in the news lately. I don't know what exactly it was for, but...
Have you heard of the show 19 and Counting?
What?
Oh, that was with the multiple wives, right?
No. 19 and Counting is the bizarre story of the Duggar family. The heads of the family thought that God told them it was their duty to proliferate as much as possible. So they've had several sons and daughters. Now they have multiple grandsons and granddaughters. They're a Christian fundamentalist family. who have also had a noted like anti-gay stance. It's one of the reasons. And Josh Duggar is one of the elder sons of this family. Okay, He has, I don't know if he's admitted, but he's been documented as having raped several of his sisters when he was younger, and the statute of limitations have all worn out. This story couldn't get any weirder if you tried, basically. And not only that, when they found out, the family found out well before any media parties did, obviously, if the statute of limitations had run out of what this guy did to his sisters. But the family, when they found out what he did back in the day, they didn't send him for counseling. They sent him to a prayer group. Terrific, right?
Yeah.
No, you need to send this guy to therapy
first. Because of the Ashley Madison hack, we found out that he has 2 accounts on Ashley Madison, and this guy's married. Not only is he married, he is high up in a Christian group. I forget the name of it. I think it's the Family Council. He's one of those people that says that gay marriage somehow hurts the institution of marriage. Call me crazy,
but I could have
full
of shit.
Yeah, call me crazy, and I'm non-religious, but I could have sworn the original 10 Commandments said something about adultery.
No, you are quite right.
Okay. And the strange thing is, since this story came out early last week, his wife is staying with this asshole.
Someone's institutionalized.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me. I'm sure that there's a lot more going on in this family than even what we've heard.
I'm sure they're fixing it all with prayer as we speak. God damn it. Meanwhile, this story is one of those things that's both sad but hilarious. The National Institute of Standards and Technology is a federal building, okay? There was a police officer named Christopher Bartley who pled guilty to trying to make less than 5 grams of meth using the shake and bake method inside the building.
What?
Okay.
I shit you not. The National Institute of Standards and Technology is a federal science lab. Last month, according to the Washington Post, here's how things went down. Quote, according to the facts in the case as laid out in court, Bartley, who had been a lieutenant with NIST's internal police force, was on duty the night of July 18th when he slipped into a building on the edge of NIST's 578-acre campus. He tried to make meth. It exploded, blowing out 4 windows on the lab. One traveled 22 feet, another 33 feet. The temperature in the room spiked to 180 degrees, setting off a silent heat alarm. Firefighters and additional police officers responded. They found Bartley with burns on his arms as well as singed eyebrows and hair, unquote.
Well, I think he got lucky.
Well, he's going to jail, so lucky is kind of subjective. But the shake and bake method involves a plastic soda bottle or 2 bottles connected by tubing. What people often do is use a coffee grinder to grind medicine tablets with pseudoephedrine, and then they'll add it to the bottle along with ammonium nitrate, lye, and pieces of lithium taken out of batteries. Then whoever's trying to make meth will put a cap on the bottle, shake it, and it creates an explosive reaction that needs to be vented regularly. Sounds like he forgot the vent part. But according to some forensic people, this version of making meth is very dangerous. You can blow up a house with a bottle.
Wow, that's a lot of power.
And he decided to do this at a federal lab. That's almost genius because you know it's got the ingredients to do what he wanted to do, but it's also stupid because you'd think he'd be smart enough to take this shit home and do it on his own time.
So, what? Jail for attempting to create an illegal narcotic, doing it in a federal facility, destroying federal property,
trespassing, disturbing the peace, theft.
There's a list.
Oh yeah, he ain't getting away with shit. Now, also in our what the fuck corner, sometimes the basis of what the fuck is always because we find those stories that are just way too bizarre to fit into anything else, and I almost wish I didn't use the words fit into anything else.
God damn it.
This has to do with sex.
Okay.
This has to do with a specific sect of sex. This has to do with that specific sect of sex of people who are turned on with the idea of aliens ramming eggs into them.
South Park?
That's quite specific.
It is quite specific because this enterprising person decided to make a sex toy based on this. It's called Primal Hardware that makes ova depositors for people to use on themselves or their partners.
Why did you...
Ova depositors, for those people who don't understand the lingo, is the idea of some kind of appendage on an alien entering an orifice and laying an egg. This is an actual, I guess you could say, dildo that has a hollow cavity in it that will allow you to squeeze an egg into whatever you shoved it into. For the sake of people who are...
At least it's not a real egg.
Yeah, it's a gelatin egg, which, unfortunately, now I have no desire for Jell-O whatsoever for the rest of my life. But at least for those people who want it authentic, you can get them in either flesh-colored or blue.
I could go on the rest of my life not seeing that.
And I'm just sitting here going, well, now they have a new appendage for live-action tentacle porn.
Something tells me the Japanese are way ahead on this. We'll never catch up to the Japanese.
Oh, my God.
Okay, now this is a story I had to read in our What the Fuck, because it's a positive What the Fuck.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, there's a man named Josh Dunlap. He is a father, and his child has dyspraxia. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Dyspraxia affects children in a lot of different ways, making it hard to perform a sequence of movements. You know, people with dyspraxia have trouble waving goodbye or brushing your teeth because their brain does not send the proper signals to do the motions that it's trying to do. Okay?
Okay.
And Josh Dunlap's child had oromotor dyspraxia. His child has difficulty using mouth muscles to pronounce words and may have slurred speech.
I told Steve about this one.
Oh, yeah, I have heard about this, yep. Yep, Jesse told me.
Now, when his son could only say about 3 words by the time a movie called Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and when Dunlap's son saw Groot, the character of the talking tree who only says 3 words, something clicked within his son, and he managed to connect with his character. His son started to mimic the character a lot and would say "ba," but he would also start saying Groot for a lot of different things. He found a new word to communicate by watching this character and copying it. And since he was able to finally add a new word to his repertoire, he managed to get into a speech class, and things are actually progressing really well for his son.
Awesome.
Now, Dunlap sent this story to James Gunn, the director of the movie. Didn't expect anything. He actually got a response on Facebook. Gunn said, quote, "I love making movies because of stories like this. Thank you," unquote. James Gunn, just the more I hear about him, the more he sounds like an incredible human being.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's almost odd that I've put these stories back to back because I have another story about mimicking a comic book movie. However, this one would not do. Ever. Never. Ever. There is going to be an EDM festival in Amsterdam on Halloween. It's probably not the first time that's ever happened, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
This will be the world's first ever blood rave.
What?
No.
Now, you guys have probably seen Blade, right?
Yes.
The first sequence in that has Tracy Lords, a former porn star, taking somebody she planned to eat as a vampire to a rave in a meat locker or in a butchery. And in the midst of it, the sprinklers started to spray blood on everybody. That was the guy's first show that something is a little bit off here. Okay? There is a company who is recreating that, and they've actually found... let me give you their quote. "After a long search, we have developed a special sprinkler system with pipes running across the ceiling and thus making us able to spray blood all over the crowd. We've already tested it a number of times with a substance resembling blood. It's pushing the borders, but we want to see how far we can go," unquote. They do actually intend to pump some type of blood, I doubt it's human, but some type of blood, actual blood, not a simulant, through this system during a rave.
Sounds sanitary.
Yeah.
Sounds several levels of insane. And this is high on the list of things I will not do.
Yeah.
You know, I could think of so many other things I would rather copy in comic books than this. I would rather wear Captain America's costume and start throwing around a giant frisbee, for fuck's sake, okay? That's how I feel about this. I will not do it. Now, also in What the Fuck, sometimes there are videos that aren't just glitches. There is just glory. There is a video that was actually created a few years ago, but and when I say a few years ago, it was originally published on August 16th, 2013, but because the internet is slow to pick up on certain things, sometimes it just takes a while for things to catch up, right?
Yeah.
The publisher is Marzeline on YouTube, and it is 5 minutes of epic racing. I do not know which game this is, but somebody designed a special track. And when I say special track, it's designed so that all you need to do is take a vehicle and hit the accelerator. Don't hit the steering wheel at all, and you will go on the most unbelievable, physics-bending drive of your fucking life.
Ooh.
I sent the video. Okay, so it's called Trackmania, and there you see the car on the starting block. Take a look at the wide view of what this guy built. Doesn't look like much from here, does it?
Not
And
yet.
he hits the boost, and he's off. Long tunnel. Here's where it gets weird. As you can see, the track is pushing the car, and look at it roll. I'm not even sure which way is up at this point.
Yeah.
The music is just...
It's nice and calm
The music-
for all this insanity. That is a jump of about 4 football fields, and he's still going. Okay, upside down.
Oh, wow. Oh, where to go? Jeez.
I could not imagine the trial and error it took to figure out where to place all the pieces of this track.
Someone must be an engineer.
And he
Whoa.
flipped it!
And he flipped. Oh man! And into the middle of that.
Woohoo! I don't know if them Duke boys can escape Boss Hogg, but they sure will have fun trying.
Yeah.
Oh!
I'm kind
Oh.
of sad that I just ate.
Bumped! There
Oh,
are so many
geez, through
things
that
happening
thing.
in this video that are so difficult to explain to people. I definitely have to add a link to this because there is no way that 99.99% of the population have the patience to do this. And I gotta give the person who made this so much credit. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, this is crazy.
I want this as a
His
screensaver,
trunk just
frankly.
flew off.
Yep. Car did a barrel roll, still on its wheels,
Yep, there goes his hood.
but he hasn't stopped yet. He's barely slowed down. Still
This has only
going.
been going for about 2 minutes.
We just hit the 2
I'm
minute
seeing
mark.
this to the end. Holy crap. I'm damn near speechless right now.
If Max Sterling was a race car driver.
It's not Blue,
Oh,
it's not Max.
oh.
Whoa! And he pulled it out.
Good.
He just raced sideways through the air like a boss. Oh, flipped it. And stuck the landing.
Oh, damn.
Spun it, stuck it. Still going. I swear to God, whoever's driving this thing just has their foot on the gas. I doubt he's touched the wheel.
I see it every so often where he'll suddenly turn just a little bit, but
No, I think that's just the how the physics.
Yeah,
of the-
I
of
think
the
that's
course.
the track layout that's doing... Whoa! An upside down backflip. That's an upside down backflip he just pulled. Every time you think he's screwed up, there's another piece of the track. Still going.
this is ridiculous.
Is somebody make me a
This is-
screensaver out of this?
This is totally fucking awesome.
I am still not...
And I don't
God
like
damn it.
racing games.
I am still not sure we have actually seen the same section of the track twice yet.
I think we have, but it's just at multiple different points.
No, but I mean, he hasn't actually hit a full lap as far as I can tell.
Oh yeah,
He's just
no,
running.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I'm just at all at the patience he must have... Oh,
Oh
stuck
wow.
the landing.
Wow.
And
Holy shit. Checkpoint. Stuck it!
Damn!
I've never seen anybody do a bank shot with a car before.
I think that's why I had to hold on to the accelerator, because he needed all that speed. I think he needs the bank shot just to slow down.
Oh!
I've seen this
reminds me of
before.
scenes from like Gatekeepers and stuff. This is awesome. Oh!
Whoa!
Nope. That was on purpose. It's all on purpose. Oh! Holy cow! Double bank shot! Wow! He just seems to be getting faster too. And made it. Now this is threading the needle in every sense of the words. Whoa! I think he just completed a lap. Nope. Still going.
And another bank shot.
I thought I heard brakes.
No, that's just a car correcting
That's just the wheels
itself.
hanging on.
Mm.
Whoa!
Shit!
Yo, Michael Bay, take notes. This needs to be a scene in the next Transformers film. Oh! Still
man,
going.
right past those columns.
There's the finish. Into the wall.
Into the wall.
That damn.
God damn, that was amazing. So people looking for that, look for the words Trackmania 2 Canyon on YouTube, and you will find 5 minutes of entertaining racing. Now, I've heard of people trying to steal PS4s. We've heard the stories back in Christmas of people returning boxes with PS4 boxes with like Bibles or paper in them.
Mm.
I have never heard of somebody trying to walk out of a store with a PS4 in his pants.
Oh, I heard this article.
There was a man in a Walmart in Florida. His name is Christopher Caldwell. He's 36. Police found him stuffing a PS4 in his pants. According to the local crime blog of Off the Beat, Caldwell was found in the bike section of the Port St. Lucie Walmart sticking a PlayStation 4 in his pants. What kind of pants were these?
Cargo
Hammer pants?
Well, according to the affidavit, quote, Christopher then began concealing the accessories into his pants as well, unquote. Then he tried to walk out of the store without paying, with all this stuff in his pants. All I can say is if he stuffed a DualShock 4 down there, please tell me the vibration function was off.
I just...
Unless he could power the damn thing in his pants.
That just takes
I am rather confused. I'm assuming this was a large individual.
I don't know. This would just take a special person, I'm sure. Now, there was a problem in Detroit recently. There was a deserted Packard plant in Detroit. It used to operate until the automaker went out of business in the mid-1950s.
Oh,
Well,
that Packard.
Yeah. Well, Animal Control had a recent problem in that plant. They had to get a tiger out of it.
What the fuck is a tiger doing over there? What the fuck is a tiger doing? A stray tiger doing in the United States?
Well, there was a British photographer named David Yarrow. He was using the ruins of the Packard's plant for a 2-day photo shoot, and he hadn't told anybody that while he was bringing subjects for the photo shoot, he also brought a pair of wolves, and a bobcat, and a tiger.
What?
A security guard for the abandoned plant noticed the large animal cages during the shoot, and he radioed in concern. Soon after, the photographer and his team of people were asked to leave the plant. You know, even though the plant is out of business, the city still pays security guards to look through the abandoned buildings and just make sure people weren't hurting themselves. Well, when the people were asked to leave, the trainer was unable to secure the tiger, and it stayed in a stairwell. Police arrived just after midday, hearing there was a tiger on the loose. I can only imagine their response was, "The fuck did you just say?"
I don't know. This is Detroit. They might actually have just taken it in stride.
The odd part of this story, though, is that the police didn't actually secure the tiger. Andy Didrosi and his friend Tony Barchuk did. Andre Didrosi runs the Detroit Bus Company. Dedrosi said that he received a call and he was asked if he had a leaf blower. He doesn't have a leaf blower, but he does have one of those electric weed whackers.
Uh-huh.
So he took that and brought it along, and using that, he coaxed the tiger down 4 flights of stairs and back into its cage.
Whoa.
According to the director of development for the Packard plant, Kerry Smith, they said, quote, "This is not something we would allow to happen here. This is not something we condone in any way," unquote. I would say you don't need to release that statement, because I doubt that you said, "Oh yeah, you're doing a photo shoot? Hey, you got a tiger?" The story was just weird from beginning to end.
It's just kind of, balls of steel.
Yeah. Yeah, next time bring something less dangerous, like a monkey. Okay, last up in our What the Fuck corner, there is a French trio of girls who have been taking YouTube by storm on the independent music circuit for the last couple of years. I only became aware of them this week due to the website of San Diego radio station, 91X. The band is so loose, they don't even have a name for the band. They just call themselves by their names, Lucy, Elisa, and Juliet. And the main instrument they use in most of their performances is a cello. They sometimes have jams with other musicians. Sometimes they'll bring a single drum to keep beat. They may employ a keyboard now and again, but the cello is the mainstay. And the reason why I'm sharing this is not because they did anything truly unusual, but because they shared a video of themselves performing a mashup of a lot of the hits of the last summer, 2015, the summer of 2015. And as I watched it, the more I liked it. So I thought I'd share it with you guys.
Okay.
Because goodness knows, it's one of those things that made me sit down and go, wow, the fuck happened here? I'm enjoying myself. It's in the same vein as the 1,000 Rockers playing, Learn to Fly. It made me happy.
Wow.
But again, this is only 3 girls who were just apparently enjoying making music, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. And I sent it. Okay, so it's Lucy, Elisa, and Juliet, or LEJ as a group. Again, these are 3 French girls. They're wonderfully casual in this video. Now the set list is attached to the video. The first song that they're sampling here is Freedom by Pharrell Williams. They also do Lean On, Carmen, Hey Mama, Gangsta, Liza's Pastor, Conmigo, Bitch Better Have My Money, Uptown Funk, Cheerleader, and Coco in the course of this video. What do you think so far?
Pretty good.
I'm not even a fan of pop music, but it puts a smile on my face for reasons I can't quite figure out. Maybe it's just my age, but I'm getting less into angsty music and more into stuff that just makes me feel relaxed. Oh my god, I'm getting old. There's this happening out in France. There's the 1,000 Rockers out in Italy. I'm starting to wonder if U.S. music is just... Maybe it's the inspiration for European music, but European music is starting to sound more interesting to me. Maybe it's because it's something that's less fed through a... what do you call it? A PR machine. So this is Gangster by Big Flo et Ole. I'm not sure if I said that correctly.
I don't know. I can appreciate what they're doing. I don't find this fascinating at all.
I like it just because it's musicians playing music.
Yeah. That, like I said, I can appreciate it, but it's just like, yeah,
Not your style of music?
no.
I don't know. I like it.
Definitely several steps above Nicki Minaj.
Who's that?
Depending on who you ask, it's either a black woman who plays music or a donkey that somehow learned to walk.
Wow.
I liked it. Okay, so the subject of the week is the second half of the Convergence crossover in DC Comics. Convergence is the story of cities who represent the different versions of the DC universe that are all stuck, or DC multiverse, I should say, all stuck on a planet that's run by a being called Telos, who apparently was left there as a caretaker by Brainiac, who, I guess you could say by personal initiative, started making the cities fight one another to find out which city would be the basis of a new universe. It's one of those things that's not terribly well explained going in. I get the feeling there's a setup that I missed here by only reading the main series.
I didn't realize it was by his own personal initiative.
Yes. Somehow in the middle we find out that Brainiac is trapped somehow on this planet and needs to be freed. The second half picks up with the evil sorcerer Deimos from a world that has a, I don't know if you could call it a hero, but a monarch called the Warlord. Which is, the whole thing feels like a really weird Masters of the Universe ripoff. And, God, it's one of those things where I read the first half, I wasn't thoroughly impressed. The second half was actually weaker than the first, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's because they jump ships. Because, we're getting used to those Earth 2 characters. All of a sudden, they jump ship to the guys pre-52.
Well, I mean, the fifth issue didn't jump ship, but they're trying to add a lot of importance to these characters on this weird world. I don't remember what it's called. I don't even know which comic book this came out of, but obviously it's a DC property. As they're killing characters like the Queen of this world and this guy Machiste with a mace on his arm for some reason, I don't feel emotionally involved because I know dick about any of this.
Yep. I felt the same way.
Although there was... I'm still curious about the Earth 2 Superman, this black character, Von L. I'd like to know more about his particular story. The further that he went in this series, the more it seemed like he was slightly different than most of the Supermen, because he actually seemed to get angry at things.
Well, and they did mention that he took over for the original Superman.
Yeah, the original Superman of Earth 2, the original Superman of Earth 2, the Clark Kent version, was a massive villain and a dick. They asked him for help. Von L somehow was captured somewhere, if I remember correctly, and he spends a lot of time being someone else's prisoner or slave. Although, even though he had this horrible personal experience and has a massive chip on his shoulder, he still has this no-kill rule that I don't quite understand.
Yeah, I just looked up the Warlord. It is a DC property that started back in '76. It's going in and out up until 2009.
Wow, it's gone in and out since 2009, and I've never heard of it before this series.
Yeah, 76 to 83 and then 82 to 88, 92 to, it only ran 6 issues. Then 06 for 10 issues, and 08 again for 16 more issues.
The only thing I gathered about the story of the character of the Warlord is that he's another one of these Flash Gordon or, a Warlord of Mars type stories. He's a guy from Earth who somehow ended up in this weird place and became a warlord and a king.
Vietnam veteran, he's an SR-71 pilot.
Oh, wow, okay. So dead on there. And there was story beats that I didn't understand in the 5th issue, like why the character of Deimos, when he's so busy trying to kill everything, took such an interest in Yolanda. The woman with the red hair, the one that was connected to the red.
Yeah, no, I think they did explain a little bit about her. She was a character that died there in the Infinite Crisis arc. I forget the character name.
I don't know. She's the Earth 2 Wildcat. That's the only thing that they really detailed about the character through the series. Yeah. But I still just don't understand why he was so curious about her. She couldn't be the only Avatar of the Red on the planet.
I know. I think she took interest in because she was the one that died from a pre-existing event, and she was left on the planet.
But there are other characters who died who were still on the planet, like Supergirl and freaking Parallax.
I don't know. It's convoluted.
It didn't explain it well. Yeah.
Pushing forward to issue 6, Deimos and his need to kill things keeps going. Although it's issue 6 where we get our first real glimpse at the heroes of the main DC universe reacting to what's going on, and I guess Deimos is pushing the world of Telos into the regular DC universe for reasons that are still kind of mysterious.
I think it's being pushed in... Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say it was pushing all of them at the same time, but I was like, we only ever saw it being pushed into the 52 dimension.
Yeah, and there's Superman, Supergirl, and a bunch of DC's stronger cosmic level heroes sitting in front of what's called the Oracle. Also, something I had not heard of before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the DC allegory of the Watcher. It just shows up at shit.
Yep, and they're like, okay, what the fuck do we do now?
Yeah, and I gotta admit, when a world is coming in, you're kind of lost. However, the pre-Flashpoint 52 would have known how to deal with this. There were war worlds and Apocalypse. They probably would have known how to deal with something like this. The post-Flashpoint 52, I don't know if they know what to do in that case.
No, they're like perplexed. Like, the fuck is this? What do we do?
Yeah, and I guess 6 is where the grand team-up's happening. The Earth 2 heroes decide they need to find the various iterations of Superman, the Flash, and anybody willing to help because they need to stop Deimos. It all comes together a little too easily, I guess you could say. There wasn't much time spent in conversation. It was just, hey, you're a Flash, and you're a Flash. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's about the depth of the storytelling.
This is so not well thought and rushed. That's how I feel. And
the Earth 2 Dick Grayson, who decided to become the Earth 2 Batman by his own volition, somehow talks Telos into helping, even though Telos barely has a dog in this fight, other than the fact that he's lost control of the planet. And I was a little bothered how quickly Telos flipped from, okay, all of you kill each other to find out who's going to rule the new universe, to, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, well, me too.
I don't know. I thought they did a good job of at least explaining that, being that, he found out he wasn't a creation of Brainiac. He did actually exist and was dealing with that. And there was that little bit of connection between him and Grayson, and was able to talk it through. That I didn't have an issue with.
Telos is the Silver Surfer to Brainiac's Galactus.
Essentially, yeah.
Maybe it's just the beat I read it in, because I read it all over the course of a day. It just seemed to happen really fast.
Well, yeah. I have to admit, I did not go back and read 1 through 4. From listening to your guys' conversation on the first 4, I was like, you know what? Going to this at issue 5 probably isn't going to hurt me any, because it seemed pretty disjointed anyway.
Towards the end of issue 6, all the heroes who have joined together are about to attack Deimos, and they're met with their opposite numbers, the various villains left over from the worlds.
And it's even other heroes.
Yeah, it's even other heroes. It's just...
Well, not necessarily, because you're looking at... Even the ones that could be marked as heroes are basically from the Kingdom Come Earth, where superheroes are the problem. Including that black symbol Superman and Captain Marvel. They're both from the Kingdom Come Earth. And superheroes in that world were just way out of control. They fought against villains and everything, but collateral damage was nowhere near a concern of theirs. Few iterations of Wonder Woman. I see... it's almost like a cliche to see the crime syndicate hanging up in the back of the picture there.
Oh, yeah, really.
Deathstroke, another evil Aquaman. Lex Luthor. Oh, no, who knew that was coming? Although Lex Luthor in a war suit is much less intimidating when you think about the list of heroes on the other side. You know, multiple versions of the Flash, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lanterns.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at this point, I'd say with the full cadre of the Teen Titans, he's outmatched.
Wow.
It's a personal opinion. You know, you could argue that for and against both ways, but it's just seeing Lex Luthor in the middle of it all in the war suit is just kind of, well, that happened. And issue 7, as you know, is the great fight between the two sides, which really wasn't that great of a fight, in my opinion.
It had way too much going on in it.
Yeah. I mean, the first couple pages are the regular DC heroes talking to the Oracle, which didn't have much weight to it in itself. You know, Superman saving Apollo and the engineer from, the Authority. And I don't even know what they're doing there. They just kind of showed him picking up the two heroes. It's almost like DC saying, look, we're picking up this lesser company. We got to do something with it. Let's just have him save some of them. Fuck, I don't care.
I don't know. Did they have a particular stake in the event, you know, in their own comic or something? Or
the image of the two of them unconscious being flown around by Superman is the first time they appeared at all in this series. There was no build-up to their involvement.
Was their own series? Did it have any relation to this?
I don't think the Authority is even going on at this point.
Yeah, in that case, I have no freaking clue.
Huh. Then it switches over to a splash page, and it's almost like a who's who of different allegories beating each other up. You know, and like Steve said, there's so much happening and so many characters they tried to fit in, it didn't really matter. And it only took 3 double-page spreads before all of a sudden Telos just kind of pops his head up and starts interfering with the whole thing. So before it really gets started, it's almost over.
Yeah, it seems to me like they should have been giant-sized comics or something like that. They could have thrown more pages in there and done a little bit more with it because... Yeah, I have to agree. It seemed very... No, God, no.
Yeah,
it definitely was not giant size.
Yeah, these are the standard 22, 23-page issues.
Yeah, it seemed very rushed. I don't know if they had events going on in other comics that were supposed to flesh this out because we didn't read any of those. But yeah, for the content in these that we read, yeah, it didn't make much sense.
I think the only thing we could...
I can't say that it didn't make much sense. I think it was just very...
I think they had a concept as to where they wanted
shallow.
to go. Yeah, it almost feels like the problem is that when DC Comics laid this out, they knew where they were, they knew where they wanted to get, and all they wanted was something to bridge in between without really caring about what that bridge was.
Yeah, that's really poor writing.
Yeah, I did kind of mention to Jesse because he was talking about, and I heard you talk about it earlier in this show, that we've got all of these different characters and all of these different titles that are not even remotely close to the same continuity wise, and it just seems like they threw this together just to explain how this is possible.
Maybe.
That's how it seemed to me.
Yeah, we can discuss the aftermath in a little bit. When it gets down to around 14, 15, Telos and Deimos, who is right now the villain of the series, and get into that too, it's weird how they're punching each other. Even one of the Wonder Womans is talking about how godly the fight is, and in the midst of it all, Hal Jordan Parallax just grabs Deimos by the arm and says, "A word." It's like, I understand what Parallax is, and I understand what happened way back when in DC lore. Shouldn't have been that fucking simple, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was very anticlimactic. It's just all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a huge battle, and he just goes, "Excuse me, blap, you're dead." Yeah.
And in the next spread, people on both sides decide that they have to stop Deimos because he's using the power of death to, power himself. And 3 characters, a Huntress, a Hawkwoman, and a Cheetah, just run into the field and just disintegrated. I don't know who came up with the bright idea of charge.
I don't even know that it was necessarily a charge. I think they showed up and said, "Oh, we got to do something." Blap.
It's almost like one of those moments where some artist or writer said, "Oh God, we haven't killed enough people. Look, kill those."
Yeah. kind of like DBZ abridged dodge.
I know,
Come on,
and it
people,
Telos almost stops the whole thing on a dime by using that weird silver metal fluid thing that he's got laced throughout the planet. The weird part I didn't understand was that Deimos breaks free. It looks like he's about to go on an ultimate tirade where he's taking on 2 Supermen, Telos, and a Batman all by himself, and it looks like he's got the upper hand if he's not winning it. Then out of nowhere, Parallax comes back in, hits him with one beam, hits him with a second one, and that's it, he's gone. That was... Now, I often argue that a lot of DC events shouldn't be solved by people who are wearing either a bat, an S, or a W. It almost seems like one of the cliches of their giant events. However, in this format, I don't understand why it was that fucking simple all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't either. It really didn't make a lot of sense at that point.
They made Parallax into a character that is so overpowered without him actually doing anything. It almost seems like he got
he hadn't even shown up in the rest of the series that I knew about. It was just all of a sudden, oh, look, we got Parallax in our lineup. Throw him in there and kill him just to,
He made a couple of one-page, one-panel appearances, just to show that he was around, but he didn't really get involved until this issue. At all, in any format that I can think of.
And at which point it's like, why now?
I know, and he made it look so flippin' easy. God damn it.
That's a testament to how overpowered some of these characters are.
Well, that's a testament to how overpowered these particular writers are. I don't remember the character, when he was part of regular DC continuity, being anywhere near like this. I remember him being overbearing, an anti-hero, a dick, but I just never remembered things being that easy. You're talking about a wizard, a magician, who has the powers of time and space, and, he's like internalized the powers of something akin to the Infinity Gauntlet, and Parallax just cut him down with a couple simple blasts. That's almost like walking into a D&D game and saying, okay, so we're going to open the first chest. Oh, by the way, there's a lich behind it. Oh, fuck!
And that's when you say, dick.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense. The only thing I can assume is that he was being somehow suppressed by the other heroes.
I would say...
it was just kind of like, okay, that was abrupt.
Yeah.
All right.
And now that Deimos is dead, the powers he had of time and space are just running wild on you. They went all Hulkamania on everything.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand the scene where the Oracle says in one panel, I see it now, I can finally rest, but at the same time he's saving Superman and Supergirl. If he's so glad for the end, why does he give a shit what's happening to the others?
No, I think he just saw his end and was kind of like, finally.
Yeah, because before that he couldn't see anything. Then something happens, oh, good, I can finally see the future. Crap, well, I'm going to die, so...
But he couldn't see their futures. He said that your futures, Superman, are unknown.
Right. That's probably because he knew he was going to die. He couldn't see it.
Yeah, he couldn't see beyond his own death.
Just didn't understand why he went all Hindu cow-like, and then at the same time...
I don't know. I assumed it was something to do with his character since I wasn't, familiar with him. He just was kind of like, oh, I'm going to die, and seemed rather okay with it, so...
And at the end... his last words at the end of issue 7 were that all reality is breaking. For 8 issues, the Convergence main series bumps from threat to threat to threat before actually establishing any one is particularly difficult. You're fighting cities. Now you're fighting Telos. Now you're fighting Weird World. Now you're fighting Deimos. Now you're not fighting Deimos. Now you're fighting time and space. Slow down.
Yeah, it just had too much. Quite frankly, this is what I am afraid is going to happen in the Batman v Superman. They're just going to throw all this shit in there, and it's going to be like, what the fuck just happened at the end of it? Because too much happened.
Blink and there's Aquaman. Blink and there's Wonder Woman. Look, there's Ben Affleck scowling again.
I don't know. That
the last issue, it started up with Telos talking to a bunch of the heroes, and out of nowhere, one of the DC time and space travelers, Wave Rider, just kind of brings Brainiac in out of nowhere for reasons that are completely mysterious to me. And it's another case where they brought him into a bubble. As soon as they lower the bubble, the plan, thanks to one of the Supermen, or, the pre-52 Superman, is the oh-so-brilliant attack. Thanks.
Yeah. Good plan.
How'd you come up with that? How'd you come up with that? Did you come up with that all by yourself, General Custer? And it's this gigantic, monstrous Brainiac that they've never seen before, but still, the plan is attack.
And then we get a long explanation to Brainiac.
We get the "woe is me, I am a Frankenstein's monster" speech. And he alludes to like a bunch of previous events in DC history.
Yeah, which I haven't read, so it didn't really mean a lot to me.
Yeah, the Superboy Prime, who reads all these stories as comic books, fighting Superman, the Multiversity, the Crisis on Infinite Earths, 0 Hour, the Anti-Monitor War. He even referenced the Superboy Prime punching realities. Why'd you have to reference that at all? And then Brainiac has this weird coming to God moment that just made no sense. I will put them all back. He just resolved to put everything back all of a sudden.
But, yeah.
Well, that made a little more sense to me, too, in the fact that he basically, during his whole monologue of, I originally set out to do this, and then this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and now he's just like, you know what, fuck it all. I just wanted to go back to the way that it was. Maybe I can do it differently or something, but I am at the point that I'm at right now, I don't like.
I don't understand why he put it back, though. If he was fuck it all, I just want to go back. He could just go back without doing shit and not caring about them like he usually does in DC.
Well, it sounded to me like he couldn't just go back, because if he did, he would be destroyed as well.
Then why even bother putting anything back? I mean...
Because that would put him back.
I didn't understand that. He said he would channel the temporal energy and return them to their homes.
Right. Because that would somehow put him back. It would allow him to go back before he started traveling through the multiverse. It would allow him to do that. If he put everything else
basically,
back.
It's saying he's pressing a giant reset button.
Pretty much.
Just so weird.
Yeah.
And then you have this weird unresolved story where he's returning a Superman, a Supergirl, and Barry Allen to the points in DC history where they died near the Crisis on Infinite Earths, with the exception of Parallax, who decides to go with him as a shot at redemption, which sounds really weird when you consider that Parallax has the gigantic entity of fear stuck in his chest.
Yeah, that was not well explained at all. It just was kind of like let's, Parallax helped out with this situation, I guess, so we'll throw him over here because suddenly he had a life-changing event or something, so he decided he needed redemption as well. I don't know.
Right.
That didn't make a lot of
Well,
sense.
I mean, the original story of Parallax was, yes, this is Hal Jordan turned anti-hero. He absorbed all the powers from the Green Lantern rings and the Green Lantern battery. There were no other Green Lanterns with the exception of Kyle Rayner because he got a secret squirrel ring and, mini lantern somehow. But at the same time, he was an anti-hero. He killed villains. He broke their hands. He burned off the Black Hand's black hand. And then all of a sudden it's just, hey, I just killed this guy who pissed me off. You know what? I want to help.
Yeah. Again, that was pretty jarring. But okay. But yeah, the fact that they were sending them back to when they died, and then basically said, the part that didn't make sense to me was he was sitting there saying, what will happen to you when you go back, but I need to send you back because those events have to happen. And then they were like, righto, got it, we know we need to go die, but we'll give it a good fighting chance. And I'm just like, wait, no, you need to go back and die. That's what he's telling you. There's no fighting chance here. And then Parallax is like, yes, maybe I can make a difference too. It's like, no, we don't want any differences. This is what they're saying. But somehow they succeeded. And I mean, it wasn't even like, you didn't even get to see. It was just like, and instantly I knew they succeeded. And I'm just like, really?
Okay. That's the thing that vexes me, is that to put everything back to the way it was, these three characters need to die, but Parallax is allowed to try and help them save themselves, even though these three different versions of Superman, Supergirl, and Barry Allen died at very specific incidents apart from one another.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. That made no sense to me whatsoever.
You know, you almost wonder why there isn't a new DC comic, Parallax, Time Tripper. You know, and so now all the previous versions of DC Comics are different versions of themselves across the multiverse. And then all of a sudden Brainiac blinks out without doing anything to help the people from Earth 2 who have no home, as he knows. And out of nowhere, the Green Lantern gets the power to, or the Earth 2 Green Lantern gets the power he's been missing to tap into the planet because no one else is controlling it. I didn't know Green Lanterns could create foliage.
I don't know.
I did not know that was part of their power set.
Maybe that's in his dimension.
I guess. I mean,
he's got a green thumb, literally.
And is that because he's gay? And Telos decided to give him a last gift by pushing this world into the place where Earth 2 used to sit before it was destroyed. And I'm sure that sounds really interesting. You know, we've got a new planet. We can call everybody home. But it took me 2 seconds to realize, wait, there isn't a single animal on this planet.
No, I think he's supposed to see that. No, he see with what he remembered, that what he knew of their planet. So he's actually.
So Telos is God.
Again, this is convoluted fucking mess.
The Green Lantern sent out a beacon to recall the people who left Earth 2, and that's. I almost feel like this should be the part where you have Mike Myers and Dana Carvey going, dude, let's do the mega happy ending.
But I'll be honest, my biggest problem with this whole thing, outside of everything we bitched about, is what's the fucking point, story-wise, the narrative? What was the point of all of this?
Apparently, just to make it possible to tell stories without serious continuity.
Yeah, no. Narratively, there's no fucking point. Market? Yeah, there's the point, is in the market. In the narrative, it serves no fucking purpose.
Not a bit. I mean, maybe the tie-ins had good stuff, but the reviews on the tie-ins were so dismal, I didn't bother to look most of them up.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, and it's... What?
It didn't... Well, it did not seem to have any kind of lasting consequence. It was... They introduced an event, solved the event. Why the event happened? To sell comics.
Don't know. All I know is the 52 universe has no clue what the fuck happened. If something happened, it solved itself. What the hell?
Like I said, as a result of this series, I'm more curious now about the Heroes of Earth 2. It sounds like they have very interesting stories. However, it sounds so melodramatic, I don't want to go back and read the prior comics, and everything was so convenient for them at the end, I'm not really driven to read the new comics about Earth 2. I'm curious about the characters with no desire to actually go forward and buy any of the books. I don't know how else to explain it besides that.
It was a narrative mess.
And I can't even refer this to anybody. People who may be long-term DC fans, maybe there's something more in this for them. But as a light DC reader, there was so much in there that just threw me onto my side in confusion. I didn't know what to do with it. And I couldn't give this to anybody who just said, what's a good comic to read? Because if I don't understand it, there's no way anybody who understands comics less is going to understand this at the least.
Mm.
You know, and everything just moved from point to point to point so quickly. I mean, the average story arc across Convergence was like 1.3 issues before they moved on to the next thing.
Yeah. I don't know what to say other than, they
I know what to say. I would rather be reading Wetworks again.
At least we can laugh at them.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Even though it kills me a little inside.
Yeah, but
Sorry, man.
It was more coherent storytelling by a long measurement. So it's almost painful, but it's just weird. It's weird. So I think we can stop it there because there's no other... I don't think we need to say much more than, even as long-term comic fans, it's a mess.
Yeah. No, I would say, especially as a long-term comic fan, I don't know what they were trying with this one. I really don't.
All right.
I mean, I'm not a huge DC fan, but that actually hurt my image of them. Because I'm like, what? After seeing this, am I likely to read another DC no, I'm not. Not unless somebody can convince me that they've got a much better story or an actual story,
or a story. Yeah. All right, I think we can finish it right there because we can only kick that horse so many times after it's died.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next week, we got a choice, because Jesse brought up a very good one since they've announced the new Cable and Deadpool series of going back and reading the prior volume, the first few issues of the prior volume of Cable and Deadpool. Or we can get a little meta, because it occurs to me, with everything going on, summer events and all the like, maybe it's time we just had a larger conversation about the nature of change in comic book universes. When it occurs, why it occurs, the pace at which it occurs. Agree or disagree, doesn't matter. Just have a discussion of change. Which would you rather do?
I like that one, actually.
Change?
Yeah,
I like the change, but I would definitely like to have all of us there for that particular conversation.
Well, that's why I'm hoping V will be back next week and whatever is going on gets settled. For all I know, she's just sleeping.
I'm at a con next week.
I'm at a con, but I come back for the recording, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm about, several hundred miles away from home.
Well, that's your fault.
down in Anaheim. If I got Wi-Fi, I could probably, get my laptop running.
Oh, you probably will. Where you're going to the Anaheim Convention Center?
No, Anaheim Hilton.
The Anaheim Convention Center, yeah.
No, Hilton.
Yeah, that's the convention center.
Really?
Pretty much.
Down there,
right
down there on
to
Convention Way. Yeah.
All right.
But I think he literally means his particular thing is taking place in the hotel, not at the convention center. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll have to see who shows up. But I invite you to roll with us again next week when we discuss comic books and the need and nature of change within their stories. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend. I am Jeremy.
Steve.
Jesse.
Have a good one. Don't jerk and drive.